Commissioners, please report. Commissioners. Testing. Commissioners, please report.
Is there a thing? No.
Charged up, right?
Are we rolling?
Correa, to your chair, please. Thank you. Hey, good morning. It is 9:35, Thursday, February 8th, 2024, and I am calling to order the meeting of the Los Angeles Probation Oversight Commission. I am Eduardo Mundo, newly elected chair of the commission. Thank you for joining us. As I mentioned at the last meeting, I am thankful to my fellow commissioners for having elected me to this role. I look forward to the opportunity to serve and to collaborate with probation administration, its employees, on many areas of reform, including the important work of moving toward the county's goal of youth justice reimagined. One of the things you will see right away is that I'm going to work with my colleagues to try to move our meetings along a little smoother. We have come to some agreements about ways to do that, including planning agendas further in advance to ensure the department and other panelists are fully prepared for their presentations and hopefully provide important information in advance of the meetings to allow the commissioners and the public to review the information. Second, we are going to use the ad hoc committee structure to get a significant amount of our work done outside of these general meetings. Many of those meetings will lead to town halls, which will be open to the public, and always we welcome public and employee input into the work we are doing in committees when we share back with the full PLC. I have a list of big goals, but in the hoping to get this agenda packed today in, we're going to go straight to our first announcement with Wendy.
Good morning, and thank you everyone for being here today, joining us in person in Whittier and virtually on WebEx and listening on YouTube. We are, as always, recording our meeting today. You are welcome to participate virtually via WebEx, or you can watch on YouTube, but there's no interaction with the viewers on YouTube. As you know, we encourage real public participation, and we want your comments live or in writing today. There will be an opportunity for public comment on each item on the agenda or at the end of the meeting for items not on the agenda. Chair Mundo will introduce the item. Any presentation will be heard. The commission will discuss the item, and then we'll take public comment before taking any action on the item. We have made a change today to ensure that we're able to get all of our agenda items to end the meeting on time, which is placing the length of limits on the length of comments for each agenda item, as Commissioner Mundo described. So for today, we ask for you to please remember, for those of you on the panel, to speak directly into the microphone. That's mostly for our virtual audience to make sure that they can hear clearly. And for those of you who will be sharing public comment, I'm going to ask you to please stop speaking immediately when your time ends. I hate cutting people off. Please help me do that. Make sure your public comment relates to the subject matter of the item that we're talking about, and remain respectful of each other and the forum. If you would like to participate virtually, all you need to do is click the little raise your hand icon at the bottom of the WebEx screen. If you're calling in on the phone and you want to comment, press *3 on your phone, and that will activate the raise hand feature and we'll call on you. Once we call on you, you're going to have to then press *6, and don't worry, I'll explain this again when it comes time to do public comment. And you may have to unmute yourself on WebEx as well. All commenters will have 2 minutes today unless the chair determines otherwise based on the number of commenters signed up for each item. If you wish to make your comment in writing, and thank you to many of you who did that in advance of today's meeting, please send us an email to info@lacounty.gov. Please do not send your public comment in the chat. Only the host will see it, and we won't be able to put it into the record as public comment. As I noted, our meeting is being broadcast live today to YouTube, no engagement, but you're welcome to follow us on YouTube, also on Facebook, X, Instagram, Threads, at LA County POC for more information about our meetings. Buenos días, bienvenidos a la reunión. Se ha iniciado ya la conferencia a través de WebEx y también en persona aquí en Whittier. Nos encantaría que usted participara dando un comentario público. Para hacer eso, si está participando en persona, se va a parar después de que tengamos la presentación. Y si está participando por computadora, tiene que usar el botoncito de la mano. Ok, puede también ver la conferencia a través de YouTube. Está en vivo, pero si hace un comentario por YouTube, no va a ser parte del récord público. Si quiere hacer un comentario, use la manita o si está el botoncito de la manita que está abajo de la pantalla, o también si está llamando por teléfono, marque *3 en su teléfono y nosotros le llamaremos. Nosotros podemos proveer traducción o usted puede proveer su propio traductor. Le daremos el doble del tiempo para hacer su comentario y traducirlo. I'm now going to call roll. Commissioners, please respond when I call your name. Commissioner Dolores Canales? Commissioner Diane Terry? Commissioner Frankie Carrillo?
Here.
Commissioner Sean Garcia-Lays? Commissioner Shay Jackson is absent today. Commissioner Millie Kakani?
Here.
Commissioner Sam Lewis?
Here.
Commissioner Don Meredith?
Here.
Chair Eduardo Mundo. So with 8 members present, we have quorum, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Wendy. Let's proceed with item 2, the approval of January 11th meeting minutes. Wendy, do we have any written public comments or live public comments for number 2?
No public comments. Anyone in the audience like to make public comments on the minutes or virtually use the raise your hand feature? Seeing none.
Okay, none. Can I have a motion to approve the January 11th meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kakani
I second it.
and a seconded by Commissioner Carrillo. Are there any changes to the minutes? Hearing none. Commissioners, can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Let's have a vote. Oh, you don't call the vote? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. A motion carries unanimously. Bear with me, this is my first time, so. Okay, so we are waiting on Chief Strong. Should we just go ahead and move on to the next item? Okay. So let's go to. Okay, we're gonna, unless there's any objections, we're gonna go on to item 4. Regarding a request from the PLC about how many youth in probation's juvenile facilities have been charged with new juvenile or adult charges for incidents occurring inside the facilities and specifically those at Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall. And an update on how many petitions have been filed to transfer youth out of probation's custodies to the custody of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. The department provided information in advance about charges that have been filed. Thank you. That definitely helps us prepare for these presentations. Chief Deputy Epps, the floor is yours.
So in the report submitted regarding new cases being filed, we had 3 new criminal cases filed since July 2023 at Barry J. Nydorf Secure Youth Treatment Facility. The cases filed were ineligible for filing in juvenile court, meaning that the individual involved in the offense had reached beyond the age of majority, and those cases were filed in adult court. Those were for violation of possession of controlled substances, and those were misdemeanor filings. At Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall, there was 36 new criminal cases filings since July 2023. 31 cases were filed in juvenile court, and 5 cases were filed in adult court. For those 5 cases, the offenses and the individual involved was ineligible for a filing in juvenile court. Most of the cases were filed for violation of PC 245A4, assault by means likely to produce great bodily injury, a felony, a 707B offense, or for PC 243B, battery on a peace officer, misdemeanor filings. So I can go on to talk about the summary if the commission would like me to go into that, or were there any questions at this time?
Would you like to ask questions first or hear the summary? Let's hear the summary, please.
Oh, and to add, there were no new crime filings at Kirby. There were 39 total criminal filings involving 35 males and 1 female during the past 7 months. The highest number of filings involved youth or young adults housed at Los Padrinos and resulted from youth-on-youth assaults known as packouts. This is when multiple youth attack one individual, one victim. There were 13 assaults on detention officers by individual youth, and a few of those incidents involved multiple youth attacking one officer. At least one of those incidents involved one youth who had 2 attacks on the same officer and 2 attacks on 2 officers at the same time. 5 adult court filings resulted from the allegations I previously discussed, including the assaults and possession of drugs and the assault on peace officers, detention officers. So that would conclude the summary.
Okay, commissioners, thank you. Do we have any questions? Comments? Commissioner Kakani?
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm of the 5 adult court filings, I think that was how many you stated, right? Adult court, or maybe 8 between Barry J and LP. I'm reading, yeah. 3 cases were filed in adult court, 5 cases in LP were filed in adult court. Were all 8 of those young people then moved to Men's Central Jail?
No, I believe in court, but I may have been wrong. I believe only 3 cases were filed in adult court at Barry,
Mhm.
5 cases in the LP.
Right.
So anything resulting in the felonies, yes, there was a transfer to county jail.
So those 8 young people were moved to county jail?
There were 5 for the assaults that had reached age of majority, but not the misdemeanor
I see.
cases. And I can verify that to be sure, but I understood that that had been the case.
And do you have any data related to kind of how these charges from the last 6 months compare to charges against young people from, say, like the first part of 2023, like the first 6 months of 2023? Because we received data, but I think it was primarily focused on the SYTF youth. And that was also just adult charges. So just curious if you have any information on how this compares to.
I do not, and I did not review anything that you had been provided with prior to this
Okay.
report, but I can check if you would like me to bring something back in a comparison between the 2 biannual timeframes.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to know because just from, at first glance, I'm pretty sure LP's population is right around 300 young people. And so to have 36 new filings, right, that's over 10% of the young people are walking into our juvenile facilities and are leaving them with more charges, right, which feels wildly problematic to me. So it would be nice if this is just par for the course or if this is an anomaly of sorts.
We'll certainly look into that information, but I would like to note that this is over the time frame from July to January. So when you look at the average daily population, say, for example, yesterday's population was 298.
Okay.
If you look at the average stay, which is, I believe, approximately 21 days. So if anyone was on community-based supervision and had been released, there would be a new group of individuals housed. So when you say the 10% of the current population or population at any point in time, whereas that population changes. So if you looked at the 7 months and took it time that, say, roughly 285 kids detained, it's a much larger pool of individuals. So I think drilling it even further down, we'd have to look at who was detained at any point in time, a repeat detainee, who was a new detention, so that number would look drastically different considering the more broad factors of that information and population.
Okay. I appreciate that. But I still think in my mind, it doesn't matter to me who's in there. The fact of the matter remains that they're in there, and the fact that, over 10% of the kids, whether they're in there for a violation, whether they're in there for, an alleged 707B, whatever it is, it feels like a really large number to me. I think those were the only two questions.
Anyone else? Commissioner Lewis?
I have to ask the question. We've seen it in the media. And I know you may not be able to talk about the pending investigation, but how many of these cases may involve the alleged setup fights with kids? And were those kids or young people charged when they were actually being just honestly pawns? I know it's an investigation, you might not be able to comment on it, but the fact is this is happening. I understand that the Department of Justice is now taking over the investigation. How many of these kids actually came from that group that were charged?
I do apologize. I'm unable to comment.
Commissioner Terry?
I had a clarifying question. So looking at Barry J., where it says 3 cases were filed and it lists possession of a controlled substance, so does that mean the only option, if you have a controlled substance found in your room, the only option is to get filed in adult court? Is there another alternative, or is it because it's coupled with the other charges?
The filing would be based on the individual's age at the time of the offense, and because the individual's involved and it's a new offense. So you have the commitment to secure youth treatment, which the juvenile court's jurisdiction is up to 25. But if you are already in the facility under the juvenile court's jurisdiction on your commitment offense, but there is a new criminal offense committed and you are now at the age of majority or beyond that age, the filing is in adult court. We do not have the option of making a filing or submitting an application for filing to happen in juvenile court. Does that help? Yeah. You're welcome.
Any other commissioner? Commissioner Meredith?
Yeah, I just want to comment on the new filings of the adult. One of the things that's come up in this commission before is the contraband being in the facility and the assaults on staff. And I think the only way we're actually going to convey a message to regain control is by doing the appropriate action that has been done.
Commissioner Garcia-Leyes?
I also only had a comment. So I didn't want to just pass over that this may be one of, if not the first mention from the department about the phenomenon of kids getting packed out, which I find one of the most alarming things that is happening at Los Padrinos. So I just wanted to add that I do feel that's serious. I think it's indicative of why I've been so concerned about youth confined there. But also I've spoken to kids who have participated in packouts, who have beat up other kids. And the kids I've spoken to, they felt they had no choice. It was they participate in the pack out or they get packed out next. Which speaks not to any moral failings on these children. It speaks to the failing of the institution to put them in a rehabilitative situation and not a situation where their choices were either be a victim or victimize another child and then potentially pick up a new case. So I just don't want that to go unnoticed.
Commissioners? So I do have a process question. I was surprised when I saw that misdemeanors were being filed. And there were 3 in adult. Were there any in juvenile?
Could you repeat that, please?
Were any juveniles filed on or petitions presented to the DA to file on juveniles for possession of drugs or anything? It was only the 3 adults and juvenile and the secured youth track?
There were no filings submitted that I saw for LP for
Oh,
possession.
I'm talking about
of
any
drugs.
juveniles that are secure youth track.
No, because based on my understanding, the question was asked, there had been no one involved that was a juvenile.
Okay. So is there, what is the process when a facility decides that they're going to take an incident that occurred and present it to the DA? Is it a single person that has that level of discretion, or is there a list of elements that have to be in place? Or is every individual who has any possession of a drug automatically presented to the DA?
No, well, I can tell you this, when it meets the level of having, rises to the level of having to do a filing, so you can say, hey, there was this possession. These drugs are in this facility. You're not supposed to have drugs in a facility. That in and of itself illegal. You're in possession of that controlled substance. So then there's consideration, should we file an application to consider new charges being filed? So given the issues that have been happening, the possession of contraband, I don't have to remind anyone that we had an in custody death. So given the considerations of that, there's a heightened awareness for the safety of youth. You may not only possess those individually, but you may broker them and give them to someone else. So based on the seriousness of that, we take that serious, so we do submit those for filing when you're in possession of drugs.
Okay, so you say we, so,
The probation department.
yeah, I understand that, but in the facility, is there someone designated that makes that decision?
Yes, so that could be, the superintendent could say, we need to do a filing. There's a person that may be designated to review things for filing. Are all of the elements there? Is the evidence, is there something to substantiate that a filing could go forward? So you don't just submit it, you have to have all of the elements. There's evidence that it happened. This person was clearly caught in possession of those things. And then you have to have enough to submit the application for filing. It's considered through the district attorney's office, and then the filing is made based on the filing decision.
What role does that individual's overall behavior play in influencing that decision?
There was no information provided to me as I got the information for this report that behavior is considered. The only thing that I was aware of is that, hey, you are in possession of an illegal substance. It is a crime. And then there is the consideration, and then we meet the elements and we move forward with the application for filing so that it's considered and then filed in court.
So when the petition for the DA to review a case is forwarded, somebody's made the determination between a 245A4 and A1 and A2 and A3. Who in the department is qualified to make that determination? Because at that point, it essentially becomes a booking.
Well, No, because what ends up happening is you, as you know, you were with probation, you submit your application for filing. Even if an independent law enforcement agency came in and took the report, submitted an application for filing. So dream scenario, a person has a petition submitted for consideration of a 245 assault. So the district attorney's office looks at it and says it doesn't meet these particular elements in the application. So the filing decision is on the district attorney, who could say, well, we could file a lesser included interrelated offense or something related to this. So they could reduce it to a battery, and that could be the filing.
But that individual will go through intake at Los Padrinos, and intake will enter that as a 245A4, and that would be a JAI 245 or any court system 245A4. So that kid at that point becomes held under a 707B.
Well, no, because you've submitted the application for filing. There's an individual that looks at the filing. So say for the assaults. So the filing individual would look at, they would get pictures of the victim. They would interview the victim. They would review the video of the assault. And then the determination would be made because you're already in custody to do the filing. So one thing that does have to happen in those elements is a kid does have to be noticed, that you do have, there is in essence, some amount of new arrests. But I think the discussion that we're having is two different ones in the same vein, where you're talking about new intakes. So the person in essence is booked, is what you're implying and stating, where this individual is already in custody. They're either have individually youth on youth violence where there's been an assault, or there's been the multiple subject assault on one victim. So that's for us different, because we would not be, well, we'd be the filing agency, but you're already in custody and somebody in custody has been seriously injured and victimized. As you see from the seriousness of the offense, which is a 707B offense, somehow all of the elements were met for this level of filing. That means the significance of the injuries to the victim, compelling evidence either through video or the written reports, but primarily through video because everything's on video, to show that somebody was seriously injured. They were seriously injured and it warranted a new criminal filing, and to, in the best interest of the victim, to file a new crime report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just for clarification, I'm a little confused. Just for clarification, I'm a little confused. I know, like on 245, there's A and B and there's subsections with specific elements. If the person's in custody, they're already in custody, so we're not actually taking rebooking them then. We're just submitting the case to the DAs for review, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I got it now. Thanks.
Well, I guess I'm going to ask just this one last question, and I know it's a little nuanced, but that individual does go through the intake unit, right? And there's a detention report done. Because it's a new case, and that's where I'm concerned. Because when that detention report is done, let's say that individual had been, for some reason, in custody on a non-707B. So that changes his whole court process now. And when it goes to intake, that at that point, even though the DA has not made a decision, that charge is basically memorialized. And that's what bothers me, because if we don't have anybody who's really qualified to make that decision, like officers in the field that do it on a daily basis, you have somebody in an institution doing it who doesn't do it on a daily basis. And that's what I'm concerned about, is that initial detention report is going to basically be dealt with as a 707B, whether it is or it's not. And that's why I'm wondering about the qualifications of that person.
Well, the filing officer at Los Padrinos has been trained to be the filing officer.
Okay.
So when there's the intake report, so the intake report in and of itself does not do the filing. It's the application for the petition to file. The detention report simply lays out what happened, but the actual filing is determined through the district attorney's office based upon the application for filing. Whereas the detention report says, hey, these are the factors of this, of what happened. This is the statement from the victim. These are the injuries sustained by the victim. So there's two different things.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wendy, do we have any written or live public comments on item 3?
If members of the public would like to comment in the room, will you please come and line up behind the podium here? And if you want to make public comment virtually, use the raise your hand feature or dial *3 on your phone, and we will call on you. Anybody in the audience here want to make public comment? Good morning, Kent.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm putting this out on spin on this. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on this. I didn't I think this is something that I addressed many times in the board of supervisors and many meetings. How this is something that just in general operation staff lacks. When I was in Camp Challenger, I remember getting into file and getting refile, getting a time at it. I was supposed to do 9 months in camp. I ended up doing 18 months in total, in general, because I was constantly getting time at it because of little things that I just feel that the staff didn't know how to navigate around, and that comes like all this gang stuff, I just feel like this is why we need to continue to invest in credible messengers, because we need to understand the dynamics of these young people, where they're living at, inside. We should expect them to fight in these types of environments. This is nothing new. And I think that because we don't have these development lenses from probation, we constantly just want to go to new charges and refile and all these things. And that's when, as a kid, I remember getting refile. I used to glorify that. It used to be cool, like, to get refile, because the culture in general, it was cool to get time at it. That's the culture that we're not addressing in these institutions, and I just want to bring that up because I feel like nobody talks about that. And I believe in accountability. If we're trying to hold young people accountable, we should also hold the probation department accountable in their mistakes, in them not navigating through these environments in the way that is healthy to the young people, because if you have a young people, they're 14, 15, 16, 17, of course they're going to fight. Of course they still have behaviors that are not appropriate, but that's the whole point. They ended up there, and we shouldn't continue to enable that type of behavior by just punishing them, because like I said, when I was 15, 14 in camps and in these facilities, I used to glorify when staff used to be like, oh, you're from this gang, oh, this and that. Like, all this is a culture that needs to be addressed in the facilities. The probation knows where each of these kids are from, what gangs they're from, all that, and I feel like that's why I feel like just having another layer of support system from people that have been there, done that, and can really get to the young people. Like, I've been doing this for 10 years, and in my 10 years of working with young people, I never had to glorify my gang or say that I'm from this hood to get at young people. And I feel like that's where we need to kind of, just want to address that. I know this is about subpoena and getting information, but I just want to bring that perspective to this room. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mr. Mendoza.
Commissioners, my name is Saul Campos, and I'm here to speak on item 3. All I would like to say is that punishing the youth for assaulting people in juvenile hall, it should be moved into a different direction. The education process, I believe that would be very important for them. Instead of just punishing, put them somewhere, put them with a credible messenger who could teach them and help them combat these beliefs that they have, so they could be better individuals while they're in there, and continue and be productive and leading to doing some type of positive behavior instead of just getting punished and going right back to the same thing. I believe education is important for the youth as well as for everybody else. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Lena Mallet with the Children's Defense Fund and Layup. As other commissioners have noted and folks who came before me, this is an extremely archaic dependence on criminalization that only further entrenches youth in the system. There's net widening happening all across the state, and this is just one of the mechanisms that folks are using. And when we're thinking about SB 823 and DJJ realignment, whose intent was supposed to be for enabling a public health approach, I don't see how adding charges to 10% of Los Padrinos population is aiding in that effort in any way. And when we're thinking about how we're filing, and I know the DA missteps as you were sharing is the one that is mostly responsible. I do think the person who is filing the application and the report has a lot of influence in the way that decision is made. And so I'm wondering about discretion and ways that maybe we can think alternatively about how we're choosing to hold these young people accountable. We know discretion is used all the time for probation officers and others when they have committed harms. So yeah, really hope that this practice comes to an end. Thank you.
Thank you. I see that we have some hands up online. We'll get to you in a moment. Good morning, Mr. Bell.
Yeah, I'm Thomas Bell. I'm local 685, Camp Vice President. And I just want to say, one, I think the number was a little too low. You know, I know people disagree with that, but we were trying to send these kids back to society. If they're going in here and they're assaulting the officers, assaulting each other, and then we pat them on the back and send them back out to society, that's not going to work. What job are they going to walk into where they get mad at their supervisor and they get to spit in their face? They get to punch them. They get to do all this stuff. We're not preparing them for society. That 10%, that's to save the 90%. What about the 90% that's in there doing their job, doing what they're supposed to do, wanting to get out, wanting to change their life? If you got the 10% in there causing ruckus and the 90% is like, well, what's going on? Now the 90% is thinking, well, they're getting away with it. Why can't I do it? If they're getting rewarded for this, if they get, oh, I get to talk to a credible messenger because I just assaulted staff versus charges, well, shoot, I want to talk to them too. Let me attack them. Let me do this. We got to realize we ain't doing this just because we want to press charges and show them who's boss. These kids, we sending them back to society. And if they don't learn like right is right, wrong is wrong, how are they going to survive out there? How are we going to help them grow? You know, and you know, as far as credible messengers, we all for it. Nobody's ever been against credible messengers until that credible messenger gets assaulted too. Then are we going to file charges then? You know, I've been there when mental health, not probation, mental health has been assaulted, sexually assaulted. I've been there when the teacher come running out the classroom because the kid is chasing them. Do we file charges then? Or we just pat them on the back and say, well, you're a product of your environment. Same environment we grow up in. You know, I don't live in Beverly Hills. I live over there in the Antelope Valley. You know, but most of us don't live in Malibu where Kilpatrick is. We live right in these communities with these kids.
That's your time, Mr. Bell.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Tyreek Ship. I'm with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. I'm gonna just make this quick. We gotta invest in credible messengers. I mean, I think that's vitally important, especially when we talk about people having a survival mindset. For me, I went to school and we used to fight all the time, and that was only 8 hours and 5 days a week. So imagine being with somebody for 24 hours and 7 days a week, and they your enemies, and they want you out of here. The schools used to tell me, oh, well, maybe you just need to find another school. And then we doing the same thing like with probation, passing them off to the next person. No, we need to invest in credible messengers and allow them to work inside of our halls and camps. And it has been effective, and we've seen that. So I just wanted to uplift credible messengers one more time. Thank you.
Thanks, Tyreek.
My name is Jazara Holiday from Youth Justice Coalition. I was one of those juvenile kids that got locked up in 2019. I come from South Central LA where I got into fights where I fought teachers and everything else. I'm standing here 21 years old today, January 18th, as a changed person thanks to Youth Justice Coalition. When you invest in a youth's education, childhood trauma, get down to the bottom of everything that's going on, you can change a person. So you saying that the 30 people in there versus the 90 people that actually want to get out, what if those 30% is lost and don't know where to start like I was? I hated myself and I hated everybody around me because I didn't know how to process or get through anything that I had going on. So for you to say because 90% are trying or showing some type of effort, whatever the case may be, you don't know what those 30% go through even when they get home. You don't know what they're gonna go through. They like to start all over again, just like that. You don't know about their parents. You don't know nothing that's going on. And y'all don't ever try to get down to the deep problem. No, nothing no enforcing trauma and stuff is not okay, right? But 13, 14 years old and you're growing up in a house that's filled with trauma, what are you gonna go out in the world and produce? What are you gonna go out in the world and produce? Exactly, trauma. So when you get those skills of helping and love and care that children deserve because you're a child. I am still a child at 21 years old. I still, when something happened, I still go look for my mom. I still go look for YJC for the resources because I need help. Kids are always gonna need help. There's no time that you should ever give up on a child.
Thank you, Ms. Holliday.
My name is Juan Gomez. I'm with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. And all I want to say is that it's good that they're investing on this type of trainings. One thing that stands out to me is like if you're going to invest on somebody's training how to file, we also need to invest on how to counteract that problem. I was there 12 years ago, and the same things that happened when I was there is still happening today. So like the speakers before me were saying, you know, you punishment is not the answer. You know, putting somebody 20 years more or 10 years more or however how much time you give them is not the answer because you're keeping them in the same environments. What is the root cause of the problems? Instead of like just filing charges, I understand punishment is or like consequences are necessary, but at the same time, how are you addressing the problem at its root? And I think that that's what we need to invest in instead of just like, oh, let me train them on how to file charges properly. Thank you.
My name is Giovanni Hernandez, I'm the anti-youth advocate with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. I want to just echo what everyone has been saying. Too, I was there 17 years ago as a youth, 14-year-old kid, problem child, and quite frankly, it's I was part of that problem as well. But also the culture that was within the juvenile halls with the probation. They allowed me to go into cells and get into fights, pack people out, and probation staff were enabling that behavior, and I was okay with it because I looked at them as they were authority, and it was okay with me. It was okay with them. So what was the problem? It was until years later that I got the help I needed. The help wasn't there when I was there, and it saddens me to hear 3 years later with Juan Gomez, he was going through the same thing, and 3 years after, and even to this day, that behavior continues. I thought I was going to come home and hear all the good things that were going on in juvenile hall and all the help that the youth had been receiving, but it's a slow process. I get it, but it's more needs to be done on both sides, and punishment is definitely something that is not the answer. Education and investing in our youth is definitely something we need to focus more on, and training, probation as well. We're definitely here to help and be that, to be part of the solution here. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing that, Giovanni.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeffrey Hines. I am the Youth Development Coordinator at Youth Justice Coalition. And I've been doing this work for 6 years, working with youth that have been system impacted. The thing that I know that I'm hearing up here, when I hear that charges are being added, a lot of time, these kids are doing these things because they're looking for attention. They're looking for love. They're looking for someone to actually pay attention to them. So they do things to lash out. They do things so that people can see them because they don't feel seen or heard where they come from. They don't feel seen and heard in their houses. So I want for us to reimagine what it looks like for these youth. Give them love. Give them something that they can walk away with. They're coming from environments that they don't have any kind of emotional intelligence. They don't know how to deal with their emotions. But you're telling them that you've criminalized them. They've already been demonized because of who they are, coming from these inner city communities. They already feel demonized. Then you take them into these spaces and you demonize them even more. And this is supposed to be a place of rehabilitation? That doesn't feel rehabilitating. If you're going to give them attention, give them the things that they need. They need emotional support. They need emotional intelligence. They need education to understand how to deal with what they're dealing with because they never got it at home. So, thank you.
Thank you for being here today. And we're going to go to virtual public comments. It looks like the first one is Preston. Is that right? Oh, it's David Carroll. Okay, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Carroll. We're going to. People are happy to hear your name called. David, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Oh, we can hear you now. You can begin. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is well. I just had a really brief question. I did put it in the chat also. Previously, we were told that young people would only be charged for possession if they were accused of distributing, which still was, left some room for lots of questions. But I just wanted to clarify: are young people being charged for simple possession? And I guess the other part of it is, considering that to even obtain that substance, someone would have had to have brought it in. So that it just kind of creates a real concern for me if young people are being charged with possession in a place where they shouldn't be able to obtain those substances in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're going to go through the public comment, Mr. Carroll, and then come back to ask Deputy Chief Ups to answer your question, if that's okay. We've got we have Preston next. I'm sorry. Okay, Preston, if you can unmute yourself, please. Preston, can you hear me? Yes, I think we can hear you now.
Okay, how you doing? My name is Preston Sawyer. I'm from the Prison Way organization. And I just want to touch on something that I heard one of the gentlemen say that I believe was being brushed off. There's not enough investigation into the people that are being set up in there to be enabled to fight. And the fact that it's being brushed off means that you don't believe that the staff or guards in there are promoting that kind of behavior, and it's being pushed off that these kids are just being aggressive for no reason. It's a lot of enabling that goes on with that. But I also want to say that we need to invest more money and resources into people coming back in there in order to really get these kids a look at successful people that being where they're at. Because a lot of us being where they're at. I just got out from doing about 15 years, and the system is still messed up. So they need to see more of us coming back in there, providing them with different resources and programs so that we could really invest in our future, because they are our future. And if we're not attacking that now, then we just doing this for nothing. Like, why are people in a position saying that they are here for these kids when a lot of people are really not? So I just want to just say, man, I hope we invest more resources and time and really put people in there that really can relate to these kids, not just here for a job, but really passionately trying to make change, because we had an epidemic where this youth is getting out of control. And if we don't do something now, then it's going to get worse than what it is. Thank you.
Thanks for joining, Preston. We're going to go next to Teresa Soria. Teresa, can you unmute yourself?
Officer with LA County Probation. I'm also a 685 member, and I just wanted to make a comment regarding the number 4. So I think it would be useful for us to have, especially the new recruits, to have specialized training in defensive tactics, and then maybe possibly utilize LA County Fire and EMTs to get some trauma trained officers. And when these youth do commit violent crimes against either youth or officers, that they be accountable and held to the full extent of the law, because there are victims where we're getting stabbed, punched, spit at, gassed by feces, period, but blood is thrown at us. So we still have to have consequences for these youth, and it's essential to make sure that our community is safe. Because if we don't protect law enforcement, society as a whole is at risk. And there's a lot of victims of violent crimes that are not getting justice. I myself was violently attacked, and I sustained life-threatening injuries by several youth in these facilities. And you have several officers that have sustained injuries that have caused them to no longer do their jobs and fulfill their sworn peace officer duties. So yeah, I think there still has to be accountability because it's not just staff are setting up fights and these kids are doing, there has to be accountability. Law enforcement is essential to protect the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to our last commenter, which is Aditi Sharakar. Aditi, we're going to unmute you.
Aditi Sharakar from Children's Defense Fund, California. It's really telling that Local 685 thinks speaking with a credible messenger is a reward, and that sending a young person to adult jail is somehow preparing them for society. It's outrageous that instead of looking internally at what might be causing these incidents, probation officers are hungry to push these young people into an adult system and all the cascading consequences that come along with that. These young people are locked up inside facilities that cannot meet the bare minimum standards set by the state over and over again. It has been over 150 days that these facilities have been out of compliance with safety regulations, with minimum standards. Youth are still reporting urinating in their cells overnight. Programming is still not being offered consistently. And officers have been caught running literal gladiator rings inside these facilities. So to turn around and say this is all about accountability for young people, when it's the young people who are in fact being victimized by the probation department, tells us everything we need to know about probation's mindset. You must use your subpoena power to help them because you should understand now the danger they are in when they are under the custody of this probation department and housed in facilities where they are perpetually unsafe. And this has nothing to do with what an individual young person may need after they experience these facilities. Sending them into the adult system is the last possible solution here. And the fact that this department is so hungry to do it tells you everything you need to know.
Thanks, Aditi. We have two more comments and then we're closing the public comment for this agenda item. We'll take James Maddox and then Miguel Casar. Let's go with James. You can unmute yourself.
I'm a social worker and I'm a data guy. In listening to the report from the probation department, what was missing for me is what are the ages of the children or the people who are the offenders? That's all. I think it would be informative to quantify that a 13-year-old or a 15-year-old or an 18-year-old is doing this. But that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, James. And finally, Miguel Casar. Welcome, Miguel. Can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me? Hello, hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Well, good morning.
Sorry, sorry, I'm distracted. Okay,
Sorry.
I'm restarting your time, Miguel. Give me 1 second.
No.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Well, good morning. It's good to be, unfortunately, it's not so good to be here, but it's good to hear from you all. It's been a long time since I've been able to join this space, and it feels like, unfortunately, too much has not changed. Once again, it's unaccountable and criminal institutions seeking to hold others accountable. There's a lot of energy being used for trickery and deceit rather than to confront what is a hard truth, that carceral and punitive structures do not work. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it is about time that we as a county and as the people confront the fact that we won't punish our way out of injustice. Care and support are the only answer, and it is time to invest in these and to move away from harm. Again, further punishing youth isn't but going to reproduce cycles of hurt and harm, and this dehumanization is unfortunately not limited to the youth, but also to the adults that have to justify the work that they do within these criminal and carceral spaces. Harm dehumanizes us all, youth and adults, and support and care are our only way out of this. I really do hope that we as a people, as a county, as a space can begin to confront what is a hard pill to swallow, but that I believe is the only way that we're going to get out of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. And we are going to do one more, which is Eva Cervantes. Eva, if you can unmute yourself. If you're on the phone, Oh, yeah, we can hear you. You can begin.
Okay, I'm over here in Mexico, so I hope it doesn't uh I lose service. But yes, I it's the same comment that one of the other persons comment the same thing that about staff making, the kids fight, make like I heard some stuff that's going on because I have my son in there, and another parent mentioned to me that I guess her son had a new charge for fighting. But who is provoking those fights? Sometimes it's the staff. Sometimes it's the staff. Like I said before, they do have good staff, but sometimes there's some that don't care and they make the boys fight. That's all I wanted to comment, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cervantes. I think I've said this before, but we are actively recruiting parents and family members of youth who are in the facilities to participate in our meetings and give public comment. So thank you for coming today and giving public comment. And please welcome those other parents that you're aware of to join us. And with that,
Yes,
that's the end of public comment on this
yes,
item.
I'm new. I'm new. It's my first time, and but I will
Yeah,
like.
so before I return and ask questions of the commissioners, if they have any comments, Ms. Epps, to Mr. Carroll's point about charges, that he was under the impression that they would only be done if there's a distribution element to it. And the second one by Mr. Maddox about the age range of the individuals at Los Padrinos that are being charged.
So to the first question, I am not aware of nor had anyone offered to make me aware of anything regarding distribution. Of course, the elements of those criminal filings are much different. It's quantity, very different than simple possession. So I would have to look into that and I can report back next month. I did also make a note about the ages. I can certainly look at the log that was provided to me, and I believe it had the date of births, but there was identifiers for probation, so I can get that and bring back a chart with the ages if you'd like.
Okay. Commissioners, do we have any questions or comments? I see that Commissioner Lewis.
Both a question and a comment. So first, I have both a question and a comment. My comment first, not sure if everyone's aware, just so where we're sending or talking about sending these young people to the Men's Central Jail. In 2023, 49 people died in the Men's Central Jail. Of those 49, 4 were under the age of 25, 19, 20, 22, 24. So let's just think about that for a minute. When we think about the United States Supreme Court has determined based on brain science that these kids or these young people's brains have not fully developed till about 25 or 26. And even the state of California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation recognized this, and the psychologists and the Board of Parole hearings, all of these people have shifted in how they administer the repercussions of people's actions, of a person's actions, based on the age, because that's brain science. That's not Sam Lewis. That's brain science. Just taking that into consideration, one. That's my comment. My question, I see Mr. Strong is here. My question, because when we talk about charging young people for being in possession, one of the things we've been asking for, and I've heard, and I understand that there are scanners inside the facility now, where young people can walk through the scanner and they can check to see if they have anything on them. But they're not at the entrance point of the facilities. If we stop the drugs from going in the first place, one, Brian Diaz will still be here. Two, we wouldn't have these kids being charged. So my question is, when are we going to get those in place? Because that is a secondary security or the first line of defense, stopping anyone, whether it be families, staff, community-based organizations, anyone from bringing anything into these facilities, because they would have to walk through these scanners. They're not up. I've been at both facilities. They're inside, but that doesn't stop the drugs from getting inside in the beginning. You can walk through, and I would suggest, just from some of the reading that I've done, they do it with the TSA periodically, where they have one of their agents walk through to see if they can smuggle something in. So why don't you have a staff, see if they can smuggle a pocket full of pills in? See if it's possible. We have to figure out how to eliminate these things. The Department of Justice has funding for things like drone defense, funding for these facilities that they will give you so you can build out things that will make the perimeter and the security more secure. If we don't have, I know we have the funds, but I'm just giving you another pathway. There's a judge named, a retired judge named Karen Friedman I can put you in contact with. It's funding available for things that will help make the facilities more secure. They also have funding on the staff side for staff wellness, for staff that work inside correctional facilities and juvenile facilities. So there's funding there, but we have to be proactive of finding solutions. My question again is when and where will we have these scanners up where everyone has to walk through them? I'm saying I go into the facilities all the time. I want to walk through them. I don't see them. I want to walk through them. Because when I walk through them, I'll know that everybody else that comes behind me, they have to walk through them too. And that makes the facility more secure. So just want to know where they're at. Or is it a capital project? Do you need us to push to make that happen, to make it happen fast? But it needs to happen again, because if we're charging kids, here's the two-edged sword. We're charging young people for being in possession of narcotics. Okay. We're also allowing them to be at risk. And I said this long before Brian Diaz died. If we don't do something, because they've had one at LP and one at Barry J, where they've had to use Narcan multiple times, and Barry J, I think they had to use 4 doses of Narcan to bring the young person back, and 3 in Los Padrinos. It's Russian roulette we're playing with right now. Like, let's do something. Let's, like, together we should do this. Like, let's figure this out. That'll mean less young people are being charged with possession. That'll mean young people that are in custody are safer from being having access to those type of drugs.
Is that a question you can answer, Ms. Epps?
Will you repeat for me just the core question?
The core question is, where are the scanners that should be we asked for to be at the entrance of both Los Padrinos and Barry J. Nightoff? And eventually, I plan on asking for camps too, so don't think I forgot about the camps, but those 2 facilities. So we asked for scanners, like the airport scanners, for people to go through, to be at the entrance.
I'm going to refer to our Chief of Safety and Security, Eric Strom, because he has the most current information regarding that.
Chair, can I make a point of procedure? I feel like we've just moved back to discussion point 3.
Yeah.
Which I think is where we were going next. So can we?
So we probably can hold off on that question until the next one. Item 3, because that's part of security. Is that okay, sir?
Absolutely.
Great. Commissioner Kokani.
I think this is probably just more of a comment. It feels so important to say, first of all, thank you for all of the folks who shared their experience and provided public comment today in person and through WebEx. I can't accept that this is normal, that we bring in young, I mean, it's obviously not normal to bring young folks into carceral facilities. I don't think that's how we should ever treat children, and that's what they are. Whether you are 18, whether you are 21, whether you are 14, you are still a child. Thank you, Jazara, for reminding us of that. And it is so hard for me to accept that young people are being required to bear the brunt of really all of the failings of this system. It's hard for me to listen to the justification of charging young people with felonies, misdemeanors, whether it's possession of drugs, whether it's violence, when we're also being faced with the failure of the department to implement and comply with their corrective action plan. LA County has been out of compliance for 150 days. 150 days where we can't even get a fire safety plan that really requires just like basic mathematical analysis. And yet we're gonna hold young people accountable for coming into these facilities traumatized, for being further traumatized by being in these facilities, lashing out because, to Jeffrey's point, they're not being seen, they're not being heard, they're not being loved. And I'm sure there are good probation officers, but this system isn't really being designed to provide those things. We can't even get a straight answer on what type of substance use programming is being provided to young people in LP. But instead, we're going to charge them with being violent, with being angry, with not having a way to process their feelings, when we know for months DMH didn't even have keys to have one-on-one mental health counseling with young folks. I walked in and I saw DMH staff in the corner chatting with a young person, which feels like a total violation of HIPAA, but that's, I guess, neither here nor there. And all they said was like, we just do check-ins because we don't have any privacy. But then we're going to hold young people accountable for being pissed off about the fact that life sucks. This is just, I mean, I feel like I say this every meeting, but this just feels shameful. We throw millions of dollars at safety, at security, at airport scanners, but we can't even throw like a modicum of love and like understanding for why these young folks are acting the way they are. These Band-Aids aren't going to solve any of that.
Commissioner Meredith.
Yeah, I'm going to take a little different point of view on this. You know, I've been on this commission longer than anybody, probably 20 some odd years, and we used to have a population of thousands in custody. Now we're down to less than probably 900 on a given day. And I want to save every one of these youth. I'd love to, but that's not really possible. On the other hand, we can't allow staff to be assaulted and not have a consequence for that bad behavior. And if they're adults, and I understand the psychological terms about the age 25 on the cognitive behavior, but they've made a conscious choice to assault staff or pack out on another youth, maybe it's gang motivated or whatever, there has to be a consequence for that action. Now, going to the contraband issue, that's one of my big things. I've been after the contraband issue for a long time. We have a young man that died in custody. We don't want that to happen again, so we have to have a consequence for that bad behavior of bringing drugs in the facility or having drugs in the facility. That's my point of view.
Commissioner Terry.
So when the packouts happen, when substances are found, I'm thinking now of what happens next. And if we're thinking of the youth there, maybe being encouraged to fight, feeling hopeless, staff feeling like, well, there's good kids here, people feeling like I was told I had to fight or else I was going to get packed out. Our programs brought in, our credible messengers, for example, immediately called and said there was a crisis in the facility, come out, because now we have, how are we preventing this from happening again? And so it seems like we know that there are programs that are working. When these incidents happen, it should be like a crisis intervention moment. There's a point to engage youth. There's a point to talk to staff. And I'm wondering, does that happen? Can it happen?
I can tell you the processes that I am familiar with is there is the notification for mental health. There's always, of course, the notification for medical. So that intervention, the mental health intervention prevention piece is in place. I can ask about the others. I know we do have credible messengers coming into the facility, and there are programs being provided that involve credible messengers. But to say that they are immediately called in response to a physical altercation or any incident involving drugs, I cannot concretely say that, but I can check into it.
Okay. Mr. Lewis.
That used to be the process. I haven't seen it lately. Normally, when something transpires now in one of the units, the credible messengers are told that they can't go in. That's just, they lock the unit down, and then we have to go through this whole process of like this happened at Barry J a few weeks ago. Had a couple of fights, and instead of allowing the credible messengers to go in and do what they do, which is de-escalate, they weren't allowed in. I think it would be really great to have all senior staff of probation to fly to DC and go to New Beginnings. A New Beginnings is a model that shows credible messengers that are fully integrated into the system. They report in, all the staff, when they have a shift change, DMH, security staff, credible messengers, all debrief together, and then they all deploy together into the facilities. that's where this model is, we're supposed to be attempting to replicate, and New Beginnings will be a great example for you to be able to tour the facility to see what it looks like to have fully integrated credible messengers in the facility. That way you can see the vision and the impact that is possible when it's fully integrated. But to the question, just recently they had fights in Z unit, and the credible messengers were not allowed to go in, and they locked down Z and Y. You can check with the logs and the staff there, but that's exactly what happened. And so in the past, when they would have disturbances, they would call the credible messengers in, and they would work to de-escalate alongside with probation staff. But that in recent weeks has not been what's happened.
Thank you, Commissioner. Seeing no further questions, I think it's a good time to go back to item number 3 on the agenda. So agenda 3 is a discussion on security at the juvenile facility. Specifically, we are following up on presentations we have heard at previous meetings about steps the department has taken to combat contraband. We will hear about the roles, responsibilities, and limitations of various teams that provide the security, including the safety and security officers, special enforcement officers, the school teams who provide security around the perimeter and inside Los Angeles County Probation and Juvenile facilities. The PLC asked the department to provide policies, law, and data related to the performance of these units, including an update of the report on contraband found on the units. We are happy to report that the department provided written responses to our questions and an updated contraband report, all which have been shared with the commissioners and are attached to the agenda for the public. Chief Safety and Security Officer Eric Strong is here to present on the item. Chief Strong, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Okay. Morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here to have some discussion about our safety steps that we're taking at the moment. I'll just start off to give you a brief overview and be available for any additional questions you may have. One of the questions that was very prominent was our safety and security specialists that were brought on. This is a new classification of security specialist that is actually employed by probation in the county. It is not a contracted security. These are former law enforcement, corrections, people that bring a great deal of experience, and they have been deployed since November, early November, and we are actively recruiting more. We are probably at a little less than 50% of our capacity for these positions. These are people that will be monitoring the entrances. They will be monitoring fixed post. They will be doing the weapon screening all people coming in, including our employees. They can also be utilized inside of our facilities at fixed post at some of our entry points where some of the vehicles, deliveries, and so forth are able to come in. They are right now deployed at Berry J and Los Padrinos. They are not yet deployed at the camps, but ideally we would like to get them there as well once we get up to capacity. One of the things that I want to talk about that's been a concern is the security personnel are armed. And the question has come about as whether they are allowed to be armed in the facilities and the detention facilities. And that answer is a definitive no. Nobody is allowed to be armed inside any kind of corrections, detention, jail, prison, juvenile, or adult. And that is supported by not only the Penal Code, but the Welfare and Institution Code as well. When that situation occurs where they need to go inside of a facility, they will secure their firearms in a firearm locker, which is provided at all of these facilities. They are there, they're close by the door prior to them going in. One of the other things I'd like to talk about is maybe some of the technology. I know that's been brought up as far as some of the technology. We do have scanners, body scanners that we're using now. These are becoming industry standard. These are scanners that can help detect contraband that's hidden in a variety of places. They're less intrusive, and those have recently been installed The training is going on as we speak at Barry J. Nydorf, and the training will be for Los Padrinos next week, and we'll be deploying those. We have mail secure scanners, which are scanners that can identify narcotics that are being sent through the mail, which I was surprised to learn is we're seeing that actually quite often. And what's happening is that some substance of some sort is being liquefied and it's being put on mail, it's being put on paper, and it's been sent into our facilities. So we now have what we call mail secure scanners, and we're able to detect those things and intercept that prior to them coming in. New baggage scanners, new technology, they have been ordered. We are deploying additional personnel at our busiest times. We have safety and security specialists out there at our screening points. And whereas the technology as far as the TSA type scanners are not in place as of yet, we are utilizing other tools such as baggage scanners, and we're utilizing our canine that is actually being quite effective as well. One of the things that I want to point out that I have a report on is since October, which is shortly after some deployment of some of the technology at Barry J. Nydorf, the report that I have is that there has been a significant decline in the search and contraband log in terms of what it's been recovered. But at both facilities, I want to say that. I want to point that out, both Los Padrinos and Barry J. Nydorf. Very significant. So at Barry J. Nydorf, there is a drop from over 100 per month to less than 20. And this is with an increase in searches, by the way. This is not that we're not doing the searches anymore. And at Los Padrinos, there has been a drop since October of over 200 contraband items found per month to just over 50 now. So we are making progress with our searches, some of the equipment that we have been able to procure, and some of the personnel that we've been able to deploy. And I'll stop there and open it up for any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Commissioners, questions and comments? Commissioner Garcia-Leyes.
Can you speak to both what's happening outside and also room and unit searches? Is that also under your professional position?
When you say out, you mean perimeter, outside,
Yes,
exterior
yes,
perimeter?
yes.
Okay, so we have our security personnel are doing perimeter patrols.
Okay.
on a
But can you
regular
also
basis.
speak to room and unit searches?
Room and unit searches are not specific to, my particular unit.
That's what
They
I
are
want to know.
something that is done on a regular basis by staff that are inside.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Corrales.
Hi, yes, thank you so much. My question is for the firearm security, the ones that are bearing weapons, when in the policy are they ordered or allowed to actually shoot someone? From my understanding, these perimeter officers are out there to deter drugs. So if somebody's dropping a package and the officer says, stop so that they can arrest him and that person takes off running, do they then shoot? And is it shoot to kill, shoot to wound? Is this in written policy?
Yeah, no, there is, we have gone through this with, we discussed this before, but there's case law that establishes a legal foundation for when lethal force can be used. And that has been established, and per our own policies, per our own directions here at probation and the training that they go through, we're dealing with security guards that their main function is to observe and report. But it is also emphasized, and it is within their scope of duties, that bottom line is lethal force is the absolute last thing in defense of life, not for a fleeing felon is what we would call it. I hope that answers the question, but no, it's not for anybody that's running away.
Yes, that does provide some clarity. So it's written in the policy when it comes down to in defense of life.
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith. And
First
then
of all, to answer that question, It's in state law. Oh, there is state law that prescribes when you can use deadly force or not use deadly force. Also for security training, it's in their training program, and for peace officers, it's in their training program. It's very specifically laid out. I do have a few questions, and obviously, I'm looking at the chart here, and it's missing one of the things that we had requested, and that was when contraband was confiscated from somebody, what happened to the person it was confiscated from? And the reason I ask this is I know at least 2 incidents where contraband was brought into a facility by a mother, and then the contraband was taken and their mother was sent on their way. And there was no consequence for that. And the other follow-up to that is then what happens to the contraband?
So anytime contraband or evidence is recovered, it is booked, it is bagged and logged and placed in our ledger. As far as incidents where contraband has been recovered and a person can be identified, those continue to be investigated.
Okay, I appreciate they continue to be investigated. It's very ambiguous to what I'm looking for, because for months I've been asking why we are not arresting people bringing contraband to facilities. Investigating is not working. We have a death that occurred in a facility. We have somebody that provided it, and that came from the outside, and the name of that person is known. It should be on LAPD to be investigating, following up. But when we're handling things, who's investigating it, and what is the status of that investigation? Are we making arrests? We call local law enforcement. Just that it's being investigated is, here we are months into it. I have no idea if anybody's ever been taken into custody behind it.
Well, yeah, you bring up some very good points, and ideally, in a perfect situation, we would have made that arrest that day, during that observation. That's not what occurred. So at this moment, we are actively investigating that, and we are looking for anybody that brings in contraband that we've identified into our facilities. And we have people out there that are probation staff. It happened inside of our facility. So if it happens inside our facility, it's not going to go to LAPD.
No, but
or
the
county.
death investigation is LAPD, and that should be being followed up on, one. But two is, anytime we have contraband, there should be an arrest being made. We can turn it over to LAPD, we can handle it ourselves, we're going to file it, but it's not happened. And it's twice I know of just mothers, I can go into other incidents, the drones and everything else, that we've identified suspects and there's been no action taken on it. And yet we continue to have contraband coming in. Well, if we don't take action, it's going to continue on. I don't see a resolution, and we were asking for numbers 3 months ago when you were here. We asked for those numbers. We continued in this log, and I don't see it. So,
Are you saying the numbers for arrest?
yeah, anytime we asked for is whenever contraband was taken from somebody, what was the disposition? And we didn't want identifiable information to the person as much as it was parent, vendor, contractor, staff, youth, whatever it would be, so we could get a flavor of where the contraband was coming from.
Okay, I was unaware of that particular request, and I can get that information.
Well, you were at that
as we have
meeting.
it. But as far as the contraband, again, it's logged, it's booked into the evidence, into the evidence case, and we're making progress. We are moving forward with our personnel and correcting ills that have happened, and we're making progress in terms of our investigative processes. And I think we'll start seeing some results very soon.
Okay, well, then I'll move on. My next question is, what is the policy and procedure manual for the security officers that we've hired? Do we have one of those in place?
Yes, so we have an MOA with our security officers.
Do we have a policy and procedure manual?
It's a memorandum of understanding, a memorandum of agreement. So, and that covers a scope of work. So it's not within our,
Okay,
it's not within our probation policy and procedures, but yes, we have a
Okay,
scope of work that
I guess
outlines.
my concern is because like you, I come from the world of law enforcement, and your agency, the sheriff's department, has a policy and procedure manual for their security officers, do they not?
Yes and no. That's not a direct question. We have policies that address department employees and department personnel.
Okay, so the white shirts that work in security, say for on the transit lines, they don't have a policy and procedure manual?
Not a separate one just for themselves.
Okay, but they have a department manual that specifies
Yes.
it. So our security and service people only have a memorandum of understanding.
Contracted ones have a memorandum of understanding. Department employees will be subject to the department policies. And then we have an additional scope of work which outlines particular duties and rules for our contracted security. But they're department employees, so they will be subject to our department policies.
Which we know are up to date. And the last thing I have is, it was brought to my attention by one of the security and service officers that there was a problem getting them paid originally. Has that been resolved?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Lewis?
So, Mr. Strong, can you give us a timeline for when the installation of the scanners will be placed at LP and Barry J? I know from what I understand that it will end up being a capital project because of how the height they have to construct it so that it fit, but can we get an approximate timeline? I think it will really enhance the safety, that all of the measures that are already in place, but I think it will really be helpful at those points of entrance. The timeline, please.
I do not have a estimated timeline for the scanners at the front. There is a lot of work happening in terms of the design and structure at Los Padrinos. All of that needs to be incorporated into the decision. I can't give you a timeline as right now as when those will be in place.
Commissioner Kakani?
Thank you, Chair Mundo. Can you just, Mr. Strong, can you share, like, are you just over the SSOs, or do you also have like supervision over the SEOs? Or I'm just not sure exactly like what your purview is.
I'm over campus safety and security. The SEO has their own bureau chief.
Ah, I see. Okay. I think it would be really helpful if you could provide whatever like training or policy manuals exist for the SSOs. I don't know whether they have interaction with young people or whether they're interacting with families, community. That part's not clear to me, but if there is like any sort of training or like policy manual, I think it would be helpful to see that. And then I know you're not under the SEO or over the SEOs, but I just think every time I visited at least LP or even Central and Barry J in the past, everyone would talk about the men in black, referring to the SEOs who would come in and do searches, and all of the young people, I mean, it was pretty like unanimous, would talk about kind of how aggressive, how invasive, and how like really violent that experience felt. And so I don't know if you're in communication with that separate chief person, but it would be great if you could also provide, or if probation could also provide whatever training and policy manuals exist for those SEOs, especially who are doing the searches, to get a sense of like what their training and what their kind of purview is. And then I just clarification, and I know this might be more for Mr. Smythe who's here, but you provided that the budget for SSOs, SEOs, and school teams and contracted security, or the question is, what is the budget for those positions? SSOs, SEOs, school teams, and contracted security. And your answer said that the department contract security is budgeted for approximately 17 million. So is that just specific to contracted security, that 17 million, or does that include the SSOs, SEOs, and school teams?
So that does not include our internal personnel that's contracted security.
Okay, so then the 26 million, I know that it may or may not have been, oh, sorry.
I just want to interrupt quickly and say there are two items attached to the agenda for the public to be able to see that Commissioner Kakani is referring to. The one that addresses the $17 million is the first supporting document, which are the answers to the questions provided by Chief Safety and Security Officer Strong. The second is a one-page document that's mostly numbers that was provided by Mr. Smythe. That is what she's about to refer to now. So you're able to look at those by viewing the agenda.
Thanks, Wendy. So yeah, Mr. Smith, I know that this is just estimates, that, you know, a lot of this is contingent, like you shared, on overtime and, you know, filling the positions. But right now, is it 26 million on top of that 17 million that is at least allocated for these positions, whether it's the SSOs, sorry. I guess I'm just a little confused because there's a line item here that says contract security guards for 5.1 million. And then Mr. Strong provided a document that says, you know, 17 million. And then, you know, if you could just explain kind of which part you're covering and if that is separate and apart from the 17 million that Mr. Strong included, or if it's all kind of one pile.
Sure. Good morning. There's 5 different categories on the one-page document that I provided to you. I'll start with the contract security guards. That's the second one out of the 5. The total budget for those, and I'm going to round off here because I'm adding this in my head, is about $7.1 million. That's the budgeted amount, and that's for people from City Guard, who are I'm sorry, it's not 7. It's 5.1 million. I'm sorry. It's $5.1 million, and that's the contract with City Guard, which is an external security guard company, if you will. And they replaced Securitas, who were the external hired security guards through the sheriff's department. The sheriff had the contract with Securitas, so we secured those security guards through the sheriff themselves. So 5.1 million. The first line on there is the safety and security specialist, which report to Mr. Strong. And those folks are actual employees, but they work on an hourly basis. They're part-time. So the dollar amount on there varies depending on how many hours they work, whether the hour is overtime or holiday pay or straight time, that sort of thing. So it will vary these are all estimates on here.
So then the 17 million, Mr. Strong, that you included in that first attachment, where it says the department contract security is budgeted for approximately 17 million?
So yeah, let me add some clarity on that. The contract which we use, according to my contract manager through the sheriff's department, I think I included in it, that's department-wide. That includes all of our field offices, the Securitas, Allied, and City Guard services, as well as law enforcement. We do contract with SSOs and sheriff deputy personnel to come at certain hours.
Yeah, everything I was asked to provide was for Los Padrinos specifically and for Barry J.
Okay, so does that 5.1 million for contract security guards, is that part of the 17 million?
That's a subset of the 17.
Okay, thank you. All right.
And there's an offset number on there for the amount that we saved in Securitas specific to Barry J. and Los Padrinos because those folks are no longer serving at those facilities.
Got it. Okay, I was just trying to make sense of how these two numbers were related, so I got it. Thank you.
And to Mr. Lewis's question, I don't believe that the baggage scanners are a capital project. They don't reach the threshold of a capital project. I'm waiting for an answer on whether they are available to be installed now. I'm hearing they may have been delivered, but there is an installation that will occur from the vendor to set it up properly. So we'll get back to you on when those are going to be put in.
Thank you.
And can you share, sorry, I know that that's not included in here because this is focused on personnel. Is there, or are either of you aware of what the line item is for those scanners and what was it? There's the body scanners, the mail scanners.
Cost of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get that.
Okay. Thanks.
Commissioners? Hey, no further comments or questions. Wendy, do we have public comment?
I believe we did have a written public comment on this item. Janae, I'm looking at you in the background. If so, it's attached to the agenda. And if you'd like to make written public comment, you can email it to us at info@poc.lacounty.gov. If anyone would like to give public comment in the room, please line up. I think that means Mr. Smythe that you can sit down. Thank you. Please line up in the room and we'll take public comment on item number 3 about the safety and security issues. If you'd like to make comment on virtual participation, click the little hand icon or dial *3 on your phone. Don't see anybody in the room. Ismail, do we have anybody online? Okay, so we'll start with a call-in user, 661. You need to dial *6 on your phone to unmute yourself. Do we have a call-in user who your number starts with 661 who would like to make public comment? No? Okay, we have one public commenter in the room. Welcome, Adrina. No? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for trekking over here to Whittier, and thank you for making your comment.
But I was watching online.
Okay, great.
So I was hearing about if there no being consequences to when people are caught with bringing contraband into the facilities. What about the officers that get caught doing the same thing? They get no consequences at all when they get placed on leave. And the same thing goes with the teachers too. And then based on the articles we read on the LA Times, that they're the ones that are pointing the finger saying they're the ones that hold accountability towards that. But here we're blaming the kids and we're still blaming the parents for stuff they're not even doing, in my opinion. And I just feel like maybe the policy needs to include everybody. I know the probation Bill of Rights refuses that. And maybe we got to go fix that too, to include consequences for everybody who gets caught dealing drugs in that facility of kids that's meant to rehabilitate and treat. Thank you.
So having no further public comment, commissioners, any follow-up questions? Okay, well, I just have one. It's more of clarification, Chief Strong. The SSO officers that are deployed inside the facility at Los Padrinos, what do they do? And do they ever have any contact with the juveniles that are housed?
So their primary function is to man entry points, entry exit points. And you're familiar with, Los Padrinos. So there is a large sally port for vehicles to come in and out. There's also the mechanical yard, and both of those have fixed posts that we were staffing with probation, employees that were there. They bring an added layer of security to those posts so that even the employees can't utilize those entrance exits to come in and out. But that's pretty much their post. So it's a fixed post. Very, very, I'm not going to tell you, when the mechanical yard, no, but at the J post, will youth be escorted around that area to go to medical or go to their buildings? Yes, but they don't have any contact with them.
Okay, so essentially they're on the outside of the inside, just in those unique areas. Then on the document that you sent, on the first sentence, it says outline in their department. But earlier you clarified that they're actually part of the probation department?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so that just was a kind of a, okay, so it is probation department. Is it on this item, sir? So we'll take this last public comment.
What's good, y'all? My name is Red Martinez. I work for Diachucha Central Cultural and Bookstore. We have programs running at Barry J. Nydorf, and we've had to cancel class because people had overdosed on fentanyl. And I think, people, stop talking about the progress of how it went down from 100 found to however lower the number is. It shouldn't have been that high in the first place. And I think that we should look towards not incarcerating youth. Also about like the charges that were being brought up for people having possession. We're further pushing punishment on children who need care and support and can't be like locked up in these facilities. We talk about security, which is important, but I feel like the kids need to be released and need to be with community members, what they say, credible messengers, to like build leadership, support systems and skills. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. So commissioners, no questions, no comments. Well, we're running a little ahead of time, so we are going to take a short break before we proceed to the next item. Any objections? Okay, seeing none, it is now 11:15. We will return at 11:25. Okay, commissioners, we have about 35 seconds. $20. You made it. Okay, we're back and we're moving on to item number 6. We will discuss and take appropriate action, including passing a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. Number 5, we will discuss and take appropriate action on the Board of State and Community Corrections findings regarding compliance with Title 15 and Title 24 at Barry J. Nardoff Secure Youth Treatment Facility and Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall, and the Probation Department's progress toward compliance. Chief Epps.
So I guess my first thing was what is the specific question? Yes, I see it's on the agenda. I see that the letters that we received regarding notices of noncompliance are attached.
I think what we're looking for is your overall perspective on the findings.
So as you see from the letters, which are obviously public, the process is still ongoing. It's not complete. We did receive notice of the findings from BSCC yesterday for LP, and I believe last Friday for Barry. We are still in the process of putting our response together. Myself and Deputy Director Sheila Williams will be present for the next BSCC meeting on the 15th. And that's the scope in which I can respond right now because we are still in the process of responding.
Thank you. So Commissioner Garcia Leyes drafted a motion on this topic and it is attached to the agenda, and commissioners have had a chance to review it in advance. We're going to hear from commissioners about any questions or comments they have on this topic. Then Commissioner Garcia Leyes can make some comments about his motion. Then we will go to public comment and come back for any follow-up discussion and vote. Yes. Are there any commissioners that have questions regarding the findings of the Board of Corrections? Okay. So not having questions, Commissioner Lace.
So Chief Epps, you were at our last meeting where Scott Sanders gave a presentation on the cap. Is that correct?
Yes.
So at the last meeting, there had been no instructions to avoid speaking on the cap because it was an ongoing process. Is that right?
I gave no instructions for that. Mr. Sanders answered the questions of the board. We arrived separately. There was no pre-discussion.
Okay. Have you been instructed not to answer questions about the cap because the process is ongoing?
No.
So the decision not to answer questions about the cap is your own decision.
The decision not to answer questions about the corrective action plan currently in the process of completion and review, well, the findings from the Board of State and Community Corrections is mine based on the fact that I'm familiar with the process, that the Board of State and Community Corrections has the authority, as you know, to conduct those Title 15 inspections, subsequent targeted inspections to determine if we meet the standards. Once the findings are issued, we then respond, and the process is still ongoing. So my decision not to answer the questions is based on being familiar with the process, the fact that the process is not complete, and I would be remiss in providing a response when I know the process is underway and there are still determinations or decisions that may be made based upon our response. I think it's premature. I don't think it would serve well, so that's my reason for not answering the questions.
Have you discussed this with the probation chief?
I discussed the corrective action plans with the chief. However, for all of the responses that have come to the POC, those came from me. So any decisions, of course, copies were provided, but as you know, we talked briefly before the meeting. So no, my specific response on this, no.
Thank you. So I have a few questions just to make sure I leave no stone unturned, but I understand that you may not feel appropriate to answer the questions. But was a staffing analysis provided to the BSCC staff as part of the inspection process?
Yes.
Is there a reason that staffing analysis was not provided to us when we've requested it, going back to November?
So let me go back to the response I gave. So there were several outstanding documents to the POC.
I'm sorry, this is going to take a long time if yes or no questions
But
get
I
long
don't think it's a
answers.
yes
So
or
the
no
question was, is there a reason for not providing us? I assume the answer is yes. I would expect you not to say there's no
There
reason.
is a yes, but there's a reason for not providing them.
Okay, and what is that reason?
So basically, again, there were the targeted inspections at Berry on January 17th. There was the targeted inspection at LP on the 18th. The inspection at both facilities is complete. Findings have now been given, but we are responding on the 15th at the BSCC hearing. Therefore, the process is not complete. There may be additional determinations contingent upon the outcome of that hearing.
Okay.
So I'm not going to respond based on that fact.
Okay. The job of the Probation Oversight Commission, according to county code, is to evaluate and support key reform efforts. So would you agree that the corrective action plan is a key reform effort?
The corrective action plan is in response to compliance. So the corrective action plan is an effort to comply with the standards. The reform efforts and reimagining justice is looking at the system. So yes, if we're adding it to the purview, it could be something limitedly within that scope. But I don't agree that that is fully reimaginative, whereas this is a compliance issue with the standards.
The code says nothing about reimagining youth justice or anything. It says evaluate reform efforts. You don't believe the CAP is a reform effort?
The CAP is an effort to comply. Reform is the total system. And perhaps my interpretation of that is not the same because I'm newly entrenched in the process here in LA. So perhaps my newness doesn't have the same scope.
I think you're to answer that question is exactly why this motion is necessary. If we can't, between the department and the commission, even agree on what a reform is, I don't see any ability for us as a Probation Oversight Commission to trust that the department is able to give an accurate and candid evaluation of itself, which is, of course, the reason we exist. The purpose of the Probation Oversight Commission is to be a third or a neutral or at least objective outside organization that will evaluate and make its own conclusions regarding key reform efforts, which is the reason why I introduced my motion. So I'm not sure, Chair, if we should move to the motion right now or if you had a different order in mind.
Let me first see if any of the commissioners have questions or comments.
I believe the chief had a follow-up comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So my only follow-up comment to that is, it's not a secret to anyone that probation has been non-compliant, and it's been a pattern for several years. Just using my memory, going back to as far as 2013. There's been BSCC involvement for noncompliance. There's been state and federal compliance for the Department of Justice issues under monitoring. At one point coming out of monitoring, having a pattern of coming into compliance, then falling back out of compliance. So there have been substantial issues within the department to remain compliant, to have a sustainable way of being compliant and meeting the standards that need to be met. There is a systematic issue of noncompliance. So for me, the two are very separate. There does need to be reform in things that happen in probation. You have things such as decarceration of girls, you have lower levels of least restrictive ways to consider not having people in custody. You have things that you want to do in the court process. For me, the baseline of you or any department, right, remaining compliant with standards is a responsibility and an inherent duty. Whereas the supplemental efforts of reform, improving benchmarks in the system, to have better ways of doing rehabilitation and intervention, to have better ways of working with community partners and partner agencies, educational agencies, mental health agencies, public health, social work reforms, to embed in the department and have better outcomes and programs is supplemental. It's inherently necessary.
I'm sorry. I had
Compliance
hoped
is
that if I had asked straightforward questions, we could move this along without confrontation.
Point of order.
But there was no question there.
There was an answer though. As a person who considers himself a reformist, compliance is one thing. That's by law. You have to do that, period. Reform is to transform a system, to add to it. The system that we currently have doesn't work. That's true for corrections and carceral systems across the United States. We are transforming the system. When you add to that, that's separate from compliance. The cap is compliance for the basic rules and necessities for a facility to operate. I believe, and this is just like one, in my opinion, respectfully. There's a county code, I don't know what it is, but how we're supposed to communicate with each other. And it means that we're supposed to be civil across the board. I believe that the answer, the question was being answered. There are two different pieces. The cap is a compliance piece. By law, you have to do. Reform is something as we change laws and want to transform our system and make it into something better. I believe that's exactly what was being said. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, but she had already said it, and we have a limited amount of time, and speeches that repeat themselves are not getting us forward. They're not moving us forward.
So what I would like is for us to let each other finish our sentences and keep a civility that allows us to actually move forward. This is a very nuanced question between the caps and the reform. I'm struggling with it. So if we can just keep our answers more succinct and more clear, that way we're not lost in the discussion, I would appreciate that. So Commissioner Garcia-Leyes, if you can just ask the question and then we'll get the answer and then we'll see if any other commissioners have any questions or answers or comments.
I had no question.
No more?
No.
Okay, we're done. Okay, and are you done with your answer, Ms. Epps?
I'm done.
Okay, and I'm sorry, Mr. Lewis?
I'm
Okay, we're done. So at this, oh, no, of course it's okay. No. Commissioner Kakani.
Okay. I know that there is some difference of opinion about reform and whether it means improving a system or improving a system such that we're meeting the most minimum standards, which maybe Commissioner Garcia-Leyes and I agree that reform is not transform, it is just improving a system so that we are meeting the most basic standards in this instance, but just for the public's benefit. 'Cause I think sometimes, as you said, these are nuanced issues, we get lost in the details. So for everyone's benefit, the Board of State and Community Corrections, right, is a state body that is charged with creating the most basic and minimum standards for facilities, right? Everything from whether a young person receives clean underwear to how often safety checks occur, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the departments that run these facilities are charged with meeting those basic standards. Okay. And just for a purpose of timeline, so you all were notified on or about August 18th that, or maybe even August 11th, that you all were out of compliance with those minimum standards at Barry J and Los Padrinos. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then at that point, you have 60 days to submit a corrective action plan to then become in compliance. So you're not necessarily implementing the corrective action plan, but you're just creating the corrective action plan, right? For 60 days.
60 days to come into compliance, have your plan, and then you have the time to work on it. But I'd have to verify that. I don't want to say yes concretely, but.
So I'm pretty sure that you have 60 days to just come up with the plan. And so that means that for those 2 months while you're coming up with the plan, young people are living in facilities that are out of compliance. And then you have, and so that takes us to October, right? You submit your plan, BSCC says, cool, we accept this. And then you have another 3 months, right, to come into compliance. And so in theory, that would take us to about January, which is when BSCC comes down to do their final check. So now we're 5 months, right? 60 days to create the corrective action plan, 90 days to implement it. So now we're at 5 months where probation is given a shot at coming into compliance with all of those minimum standards to make sure that our young people are being confined in facilities that are suitable, essentially, for their incarceration. And then we get notified, I guess, in February. So now we're almost at like 6 months that you all are out of compliance. So that's now 6 months where young folks are living in facilities that are not meeting the most basic standards. And as you said earlier, right, we had an in-custody death in May where, I mean, that safety checks aren't even happening feels like heart-wrenching to me when we know that that very well may have been the cause for why this young person passed. And so I just, again, just for like the education of all of those listening in, that's a long period of time, 6 months, where we've been out of compliance. And I understand that, you know, you're in the position where things are in flux and you don't want to provide anything, but I mean, even the Public Records Act, right? That's a state act, requires, and I'm just going to read from it so that like everyone, again, is like on the same page here. So the Public Records Act requires government entities to provide public records, right? And those include any writing containing information relating to the conduct of the public business prepared, owned, used, or retained by any state or local agency. So the writings that you all prepared, the staffing analysis, the fire safety plan, the safety check plan, the trainings, the manuals, those are all public records. And by law, you are required to make those public. And so when the POC is asking that those be provided and has been for months now, it feels just wildly inappropriate and also just like circumventing the law when we don't provide those things. So it's just not just more of like a comment and a reaction to where we're at right now.
Commissioners, questions, comments, follow-up? Commissioner Meredith?
Yes, a couple of things on the motion on item 2. On item 2.
Wait, we haven't made that.
I was going to ask questions about the document. Okay.
just basically on the Board of Corrections report. Done there? Okay, so Commissioner Garcia Leyes, please briefly introduce your motion, and we will ask if there is a second and then open up for discussion specifically on the motion.
Thank you. So we've been here before. I remember quite specifically having Chief Gonzalez on Zoom and stating that it appeared to me that the only explanation for the department's conduct was that it was attempting to avoid embarrassment. That has consistently been the best explanation for this department's conduct for years that this commission has existed. It has been trying to avoid embarrassment, to put a positive spin on where it's at any given moment, to tell us that what appeared to me to be impossible goals are not only happening, but are successful. The fact that we're arguing over whether or not meeting the cap is a reform effort is absurd. Of course, it's a reform effort. Getting from non-compliance to compliance is unquestionably something that is under the purview of the Probation Oversight Commission. So when we've asked for any documents regarding this whole process, we have been told no. As Commissioner Kokani just pointed out, and I agree, in violation of public records law, as well as Los Angeles County Code that deals with this commission. So the best way to explain what's happening is really obstruction. And it's not a new process. It's been years of obstruction of our attempts at inspecting and assessing reform efforts. So I wish I had done this last month, but I'm introducing a motion that recognizes that the department has been stonewalling us on these issues, has intentionally been trying to obfuscate what's been going on, to give speeches at meetings instead of answers. And as such, I therefore move 4 parts. 1, to direct the Office of the Inspector General to subpoena all available records regarding the adequacy of staffing at Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall. And I think the BSCC has quite specifically described that there was a staffing analysis provided to the BSC staff by the department. That's what I'm referring to. So that staffing analysis should be given not just to the BSCC, but to the Probation Oversight Commission. Second, that we create an ad hoc Los Padrinos CAP inspection committee to immediately conduct an on-site inspection of Los Padrinos. We don't have time to drag this out for months, I think, at this point. If we had started earlier, this is something we could have done as a whole body, but the motion is to create a ad hoc committee to do that. Third, to produce a short written report immediately on whether or not the cap has been successful. And by short, I mean, I'm imagining a 2 to 5 page report that really takes a look at our inspection report from before the cap and looks to identify whether or not the issues we identified in the first report still exist after the cap has been completed. And then the final part deals specifically with the obstruction that we've experienced and says that the newly established CAP inspection committee should be instructed that any failure on the part of the department to reasonably provide documents shall be interpreted as evidence that the department has obstructed inspection for the purpose of hiding the department's failure to successfully implement the corrective action plan.
Or second for this motion. Okay, Commissioner Corrales, second. Now we will have a discussion. Any commissioners that would like to weigh in, please? Commissioner Corrales.
Thank you, Commissioner Eduardo. I agree with this motion, and I feel that sometimes in reaching this point, our tones might at times sound, off, but I think when you look at how long we've come into this commission, panel and the questions we've been asking, and that this motion puts forth, the duration that we've put into these questions and asking some of the same questions. And now to reach this point, I do feel it's an important motion that is needed to move forward. And that's why we're here, right? We're here for, for probation, for the people, for those that are in these carceral facilities. And, so I think it's an important time.
I agree. Just looking at the BSCC's report on non-compliant staffing, youth supervision, policy and procedure manual, fire safety plan, and this goes on. Some of these are easy fixes. Really easy fixes. I don't know why the deployed staff was removed, because that was what allowed them to be in compliance for staffing. Like, that should have stayed. And then even the searches, we just had if it's not consistent, it does no good, because I've talked about this in the past. Searches are necessary. I don't like them, but searches are necessary in any carceral facility for the safety of both the people that are in the facility, but also for the safety of the staff that work in there. But these are easy solutions or easily solved problems, and I don't understand why they're not being solved. Yeah.
Any other commissioners with comments or questions?
I have a question. So this ad hoc commission here, what do you envision beyond what we can do now? So I know that these unannounced inspections, but are you envisioning something beyond what is sort of our own standard?
So the purpose of the motion is to just do an immediate quick check on whether or not things still look like they did when we did our last inspection, and to make a report available to the public. Particularly, there are members up and down the state who, I talk to people in other counties who are saying our facilities should be shut down, but we don't think they ever will be, because the BSCC gives people a pass. It's made up mostly law enforcement and probation chiefs and folks like that, and they can't be trusted. I think the Southwell's report shows that maybe they can, but there's still just a lot of concern in the public that nobody who they consider objective is looking at whether or not these standards are being met and giving a public accounting of that. That's our job. That is exactly what we were created to do, and we have been we've waited to the last second, but this is the last second to do it in such a way that the public will have some faith in what we have to say. So this motion is really just an urgent week or two project. As for what we do going forward long term, I'm open to rethinking, some of our approach to this, because I feel like we have, to a certain extent, failed that we waited till this last second to do this. But that's not part of this motion. That would be something we'd have to revisit at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Tell me how that subpoena would look. Is there specific items we're asking for? Specific documentation that we know exists and what it looks like?
So I believe the subpoena may be moot, in the sense that I suspect after the meeting that the BSCC has on the 15th, that the department after that meeting will be willing to share this with us, and so a subpoena will be unnecessary. But we're not there today, right? Where we're at today is that the department continues to refuse to give us the staffing report that it gave to the BSCC. So if I were the report from the inspector from the BSCC didn't come out. I didn't get a copy until 10:30 last night, so the motion text doesn't include it. But in the letter, they specifically say a staffing analysis was provided to BSCC staff. Chief Epps has acknowledged that that was true. So it's that staffing analysis is what the subpoena should be for.
So where you land on this, from my perspective, is how you view reform and how you view what the department is responsible for doing now. When I look at the cap, I don't look at it as reform. I look reform any effort that we're trying to do in decarcerating, how we operate within the hall, how we change things. For example, the credible messengers. That's a huge reform. The cap requirements basically answer one question: are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? It really doesn't measure reform. It measures, are we checking the rooms every 15 minutes? Are we providing substantial staff to protect every individual in the institution? So we have an agency, a state agency, that's actually doing that component. It's basically assessing whether or not we're meeting standards that we have set upon ourselves that follow the law. So I guess where I need clarification is, why isn't this just duplication of something that's already being done in that area? And that's where I just get boggled down on that point.
I think it is the POC's job to oversee efforts to go from a failing institution to a successful institution. That's what our job is. And I think this idea of defining reform is maybe a little bit of a semantic issue, but you got to the heart of it, I think, for right now, which is, do we butt out of this because the BSEC is on top of it? And I think the answer to that should be no. And the reason is, as I said in my last answer, is because honestly, people don't really trust the BSEC. These reports are, a lot of people are like, wow, this is the best work I've ever seen the BSEC do, and I didn't expect them to do it. But that's just one person. I mean, this is one inspector who's written this report. There are still the remaining people on the BSEC who frankly are not folks that most people who know the makeup of the board trust, right? These are people who are clearly on law enforcement's side. When we were in this situation 2 years ago, I went back over the BSEC minutes. There's a 60-day deadline, right, after they decide a institution is unsuitable to move the kids out. Kids should only be there for 60 days. The BSEC decided to hold on to its notice for 2 weeks to, in my mind, unlawfully extend that period of time to give Los Angeles more time to try and evade the obvious decision or the obvious repercussions of the decision of a determination of unsuitability, right? The BSEC bends over backwards in order to not enforce the rulings and do the things that it's supposed to do. It has only been the threat of lawsuits, in my opinion, that have got the BSEC to the point we're at now, where they're even considering offering determinations of unsuitability. And I'm still not sure it's going to happen on the 15th. They say in their letter that they may extend it, even though the statute clearly says that determination has to be made at the next meeting. They're still reserving the right to continue this indefinitely and not make any decision. So for all of those reasons, I think that the public is right in not trusting the BSEC. And if our mission is to work with the public in order to create transparency, build public trust, I think this is one of those things that we have to do. We have to do an independent analysis of whether or not the corrective action plan has successfully reformed, in my words, the department or the juvenile halls.
Commissioner Meredith?
So what you're suggesting is we preempt the SEC and say that we're more corrective in our assessment than they are?
We don't have any authority to
No, I'm
preempt
just saying,
anybody.
that's what it sounds like.
There will be public comment. There will be presentation by the department. The BSCC is supposed to be getting as much evidence and input as possible to make its decision. And I think we should be one of those sources of evidence and one of those organizations that the public turns. And I'm also not saying necessarily that we write a report and give it to the BSCC, right? We write a report that is based on our mission and objectives, which is to try and provide trustworthy information to the public.
Okay, because some of these items we can already do. We can do a spot inspection anytime we want, 24/7. So that kind of puts a little bit on us for, if we haven't been doing regular inspections, updates on us. But we can do that. We can create ad hoc committees. The only thing I see on here is the need to get documentation, which the department historically, prior to the current administration, has failed to get to us on a regular basis. So, but the other items we can pretty much do as it is.
The difference is without a motion and a vote, it would be a report by me, for example, as opposed to a report that's been sanctioned by the commission.
But it's still a public record.
Yes, either way.
Commissioner Creel?
I was on the fence with this, but I'm just jogging my memory about the death of Mr. Diaz and remembering that there was this heavy-heartedness of like, we were expecting the BSCC to shut it down or to at least act prior to that. And so I'm really grateful for you, Commissioner Sealy, for introducing this and really giving us the full package here. I can see my initial comment about, why add that we can go in these unannounced inspections, since we can do that already. But I see the way you formatted this as a full package, which is very helpful now that I can process your thinking here. And, you're right. I wouldn't go as far as to say that I don't trust BSCC and what they're doing. But I think that the public has definitely grown very frustrated with a lot of threatening language about closure and holding people accountable that has now fallen into a threat with no backing or a bite with no teeth, whatever new phrase I can come up with. But you're correct. I think that our mission as a commission, this body, is to hold probation department accountable, ourselves accountable, and to some degree to report back to not only the board of supervisors, but also to notify other agencies such as BSCC and others who are in this room that we have to take this very seriously. And I think that we're talking about the minimum standards here. And that's unfortunate that we're talking about the most basic standards of confinement and supervision.
I'd like to add one more thing real fast I don't think I said, which is the two voices on the BSCC that are most trusted by the public, Angela Zaragoza and Scott Budnick, have both been told they have to recuse themselves from this as well, leaving really all of the community representation silent in this whole process.
Commissioner Terry?
Just to address what you were saying, Chief Epps, I do appreciate the nuance with reform versus compliance. And I actually appreciate that you don't see compliance as reform, because I think if you had said, yes, that's meaningful reform, we would probably not agree with that. So I appreciate your words and your comments related to that. I think my question, and I don't know if this is out of order, is do we have people who can do this within the next week? Both do the unexpected visit, write the report, because if we don't, then is there a need for the motion? But I don't know if that's out of order, if we first have to approve it and then ask about who can do it.
Commissioner Lewis, you had a question or, okay. So, okay. So you mentioned quality and trust. And it's the 8th of February today, which means the 14th would be the 6th. Can we fairly assess the caps within 6 days and write a report that rises to that level of quality in that little bit of a time. Given that a subpoena would have to be initiated, which probably wouldn't happen until Monday. So then you have basically 2 days to do a lot. And if we really do want to keep and build on the public's trust, we owe them a quality report, not one that's driven by the board's date of the 15th. It just 4 days just does not seem adequate to really process, gather information, and kind of try to understand the nuances of every item on the cap. So is there any way the dates can be extended? So if that's really our purpose, that we actually dig in and maybe we open it up to more volunteers that way. But this is a very, very, very short period of time.
So I imagine the subpoena will take weeks and or months. So I'm not suggesting that we wait until after the subpoena before doing the other steps of the motion. They would two sort of separate things. One is begin the subpoena process, but the second is to do a report. Commissioner Terry's concerns about making sure we have enough people who can volunteer to do it are totally important questions. And I think your concern, can we do this in time, is also totally valid and is probably the best reason not to move forward. But if we don't do this right away, then really what we're talking about is a sort of a post-mortem on how we got to where we'll be in a week or two, which is important, but that's something that we could spend months on. And I don't think we really did following the shutdowns of Central and Los Padrinos, and is probably a very good idea. But I think, yeah, a postmortem on what happened after the BSCC votes is a very different thing than providing input at this stage when it still matters.
And on top of that, I was part of the PRIT team, and for years I've just been a little bit beside myself that no one would just basically pull the trigger and do subpoenas. After a month, the subpoena should have been done. I mean, allowing the administration to get passes and come back is why we're here. I'm 100% on board. I just have a problem with being able to do a quality report by the 14th.
The one other thing is with that in mind is why I limited the scope to just the staffing issue and not to the entire cap.
So if it's a staffing issue, then the subpoena will be required if we want documentation.
We can go and ask for the documentation in person. We may not get it, but we can do an inspection. We can walk from unit to unit and see how many staff are there. We can see how many staff are on one side of the red doors and how many staff are on the other side of the red doors. That's something we can do with our existing authorities.
So if we walk into Unit Y and there are 15 staff because we have 13 one-on-ones, what would our assessment of that be? Within compliance? If we walk into the field and we see 13 kids and 7 staff, 3 that are not actually deployed, 3 that are not even assigned, 3 who maybe are just leaving the facility, how do we determine if they are the individuals that are part of the staffing? I know that I don't have the ability to determine what the staffing patterns are, and I don't even understand how they legally are derived. I mean, the thing you learn if you've been in the system for a long time is you have ratios, 10-1. I don't know what that means. Is that 10 staff in the hall, in the unit? Or is that just 10 staff within the vicinity? It just seems like the complexity of doing that is beyond our scope within this little bit of a time. Well, it's beyond my scope. I should speak for myself.
Exactly what we do time inspections for our inspection reports.
So
we don't have to necessarily use Title 15.1 for the basis for our reports. Our reports are based on our observations.
But, okay. Any further comments or questions? Okay, Wendy, do we have?
One more thing. I know we're thinking about just time and people's abilities to go into the facilities, but is there also staff that can accompany commissioners, or can we be accompanied by someone outside of a staff member? How does that work, Wendy?
I can easily answer your first question, which is yes, there are staff who could be available. I don't think you could be accompanied by someone outside of staff. It depends on who we're talking about, whether they would be allowed to enter the facility otherwise, but staff could be available.
Okay, that was more about the question, in case they weren't available. But.
Okay.
Quick question for County Council. Since I authored the motion, made the motion, if I leave, do we need a new author? Or, I don't know what the movement? So I apologize. I have a prior engagement. This is the first time I've ever had to leave a POC meeting early, but I've let everybody know as soon as I could, but I have to go. But this conversation has been exactly what I hope for from this committee. And so I'm going to be very happy with whatever the results of the vote is. Thank you. Oh, and if there is volunteers for the ad hoc committee, I volunteer.
Question is like needing new officers. I think let's go with someone else. I'm gonna find the authority. So I think you can ask if there's someone else willing to make the motion.
Is there anybody else that would like to make the motion?
I can be the substitute for Mr. Garcia-Lays as the movement of the motion, the maker of the motion.
So so does that mean we need a new second? Oh, I'm sorry, at that, the county had second, I'm sorry. So now, Wendy,
Now we're-
public comment?
Okay, thank you. I believe, Janae, it was this item that we had public comment for that was in writing, that was provided in anticipation of the meeting to all of the commissioners and has been attached to the agenda. You're welcome to submit written public comment. Please email us at info@poc.lacounty.gov. If you're in the room and would like to give public comment, please stand up by the podium. And if you're online, please use the raise your hand function, the little hand at the bottom of the screen, or if you're on the phone, dial *3 and your number will pop up and we'll call on you. We have a number of commenters in the room. We're at 12:14. I think we're stick with 2 minutes. Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to stick with the 2 minutes and we'll start with Audrina.
I've been attending these meetings for months and they seem to be pointless. I've come here to do more than just talk about the problems the probation department are currently facing. All we do is just talk about problems that never get fixed and probation insulting our intelligence. A true leader doesn't create problems. A true leader fixes them. A true leader creates more leaders. Where is the leader at? because I'd like to tell you, you're not a true leader. Your whole department is in non-compliance and failing a community of kids. I've witnessed commissioners ask probation for data and important information and always get excuses and ignored. As a parent, I'm tired of hearing excuses. It's all we receive and it's unacceptable. I'm starting to accept that clearly this is intentional for a repeated cycle into a system. Let's see what your excuse is going to be at the next meeting, because you will shock everyone if you provide us results for once.
Thank you, Adrina. And actually, I meant to say this, your comments were exactly on point. Please feel free to give comments on the entire agenda item, number 5, or the motion that's been presented. Thank you.
Thank you. I introduced myself before, so I'll just get straight into it about the difference between reform and the bare minimum. There is a difference for sure. I think that that it is important that as the Probation Oversight Commission to at least oversee that the bare minimum is also being provided to the youth, or else if it's not, then it should be closed down and should build on a new system. I also wanted to address No, I lost my thought. Probation Oversight Commission, yeah. That it's important for transparency in the Probation Oversight Commission and to provide that to the public. So I do really think that the motion is necessary for the subpoena. I also think it shows the authority of the Probation Oversight Commission to push for transparency with these documentations. And like, even though that the subpoena might go for like months, it's still an important move to see that like transparency is important to the public. Thank you.
Oversight Commission. So I wasn't going to speak on this, but I decided to because as soon as I heard that the BSCC is mostly probation, fear struck me when I heard that. So I was in Virgin Nidor from 2007 to 2009, and there was an incident where I was restrained. I was overly restrained. I refused to go. I refused to go to the room. It all has to do with this. I refused to go to the room because they told they were going to give us an hour program. We only got 30 minutes, so I was hard-headed at the time. And I refused to go down, so I was restrained. When I was restrained, put on the floor, I called the probation officer out of his name. So he handcuffed me, took me to the office. When he took me to the office, he picked my feet from under me, dropped me straight to my face. I hit the floor in my face. And so while I was in the office, there was a senior probation staff there, and their probation staff, I heard one say, "Hey, leave him alone," and the other one said, nah, just let him do what he has to do. And in doing so, he told me, call him the same name again. I did. He grabbed my shoulder, and I just heard it pop. So the reason I bring that up is nothing was ever done. Of course, I refused to say anything about it at the time. I was a criminal, and I was sticking to the, don't say nothing. So I didn't say nothing, but overall, it's like their own staff didn't hold them accountable, and that's what I'm seeing right now. That's why I chose to speak on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
My name is Jazara Holiday from Youth Justice Coalition. During the month of love, we need to do just that and show our young people love and support by declaring a state of emergency and decarcerate all eligible youth. Cut the 247 vacant probation positions. Probation has received $6.6 million to increase their salaries when they already aren't coming to work or is all around unsuitable. No programs, drugs, probation officers making/instigating fights. This is not how we show our young people we care for them or love them. Again, decarcerate all eligible youth. You guys are not even in compliance and haven't been for the last 150 days. 8% is nothing. If a child was in a home that was 8% suitable, they will be removed. If there was drugs in the home, they will be removed. What is the difference between you guys' facilities and us being at home? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, commissioners. I just want to come up here and push forward what Commissioner Lewis said. These are easy fixes. A lot of times, like we throw money at everything else, safety and security officers, a bunch of other things, but we didn't throw money at these issues. And these have been concurrent issues. And LP just reopened in July. So I think that that's something that we should have focused on a little harder, just putting more money into those issues, especially since it's only been 6 or 7 months since it opened. And also, I just want to add, like, I don't know too much about ad hoc committees and reports or anything about that, but I feel like this commission is the first of its kind, and if it can do something, it should do something. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyree.
Hello, my name is Emily Zamora. I'm a youth organizer with Youth Justice Coalition. Thank you. And I'd like to invite y'all to think about what loving our youth means to you. Take a second to really think about that, because a lot of the lives of our youth are in the hands of groups like yourself. So to me, that looks like surrounding our youth with family and community, providing spaces and tools for them to heal, and investing in transformative justice alternatives to incarceration. And currently, our system-impacted youth detained in halls like LP and BJ are surviving under inhumane conditions, which we've heard a lot of y'all talk about today. So much so that even probation staff are not willing to show up to work, and the ones that do further traumatize and harm our youth. And these attacks at the hands of probation don't seem to ever find a limit, clearly, right? We lost Brian Diaz, we lost so many other youth, and I don't see any movement happening on that. How many more kids have to lose their lives, get beat, and get denied their most basic necessities for change to happen? I also want to bring up the fact that that conversation about reform, that was necessary because of the fact that these youth aren't even being met with the basic needs. So when their basic needs aren't met, those basic necessities feel like reform. It feels like change, but it should have been there, period, to begin with. We've seen probation fail our youth inside, BSCC's excuses to try and keep open rundown facilities that continue to harm our young. And so I urged POC to do the right thing by our youth and to use your subpoena power as a step towards holding probation accountable. We've had a lot of conversation today about accountability, and that accountability is not there. It's not at BSCC, unfortunately. And the only space I really see that taking place right now is at POC. So we really need to get that subpoena power in place and stand up for our youth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Hines. Once again, I am the Youth Development Coordinator at Youth Justice Coalition. And like some of my colleagues have came up here, this is the season of love. And we do need to love our youth. I came up here and said that this is why a lot of times that they're acting out, because they don't have love, they don't have attention. And we need to draw attention to what's going on the inside. There are gladiator fights that are happening that are being put together by the people that are hired to protect and to look after our youth. That doesn't sound like love. They are in there in inhumane conditions that probation officers don't even want to go and enter it. That doesn't sound like love. Now imagine if this was a youth that was close to you, it was one of your children. How would you feel if you heard these things? Would you feel happy, or would you be upset and up here fighting for just the bare minimum? 7 of the 10 original violations at Barry J are still there. If this is a household, Child Protective Services would have came in and snatched them up immediately. Yet, we are still acting like this isn't a thing. It's been in non-compliance for 150 days. That's wild to me. So I am asking, please, please, please use your subpoena power so that we can correct these issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Lena again with the Children's Defense Fund and Layup. I just want to urge every member of the POC to please vote for the motion that Sean Garcia Leyes put forward. I think finally acting on your subpoena power is has been a missed opportunity for a really long time. And this is the point where you can make those amends. And I agree with Sean that the public, myself, several others that we organized with, we don't have faith in the BSCC. We know what the composition looks like. We have seen the way that their backdoor relationships and deals with other probation departments across the state have allowed for facilities that are harming and allowing young people to die to stay open way past the point where they should have been shut down. I also think that the ad hoc committee is a great idea. The more evidence, the better. Yeah, please vote on the motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Juan Gomez from the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. I just want to emphasize one more time, like I feel like when it comes to the humane conditions that should be provided and it's failing, the unsuitability findings is being way overdue. And there has to be a level of urgency because I was once housed at all those juvenile halls and it is dehumanizing to have to go pee in the corner of your cell because the staff is too lazy to go open the door. Right? And that is something that 12 years ago was happening and it's still happening today, right? So I understand how there has to be time to properly manage this, but there is a level of urgency. The longer we let it happen, the worse it gets or it doesn't move. And emphasizing again, the problem with culture. How do we change the culture? How do we invest in the culture for probation as well for the youth and juvenile hall? So, because I bet it is frustrating on both sides. Not wanting to want to work because of the conditions. So how do we fix that? And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
How y'all doing? Good afternoon. My name is Jacob Jackson with the Youth Justice Coalition and also co-facilitator of the Heart of Youth Justice Reimagine Work Group. We urge you to use your subpoena power to get accurate data from probation that is public information to hold probation accountable to the lies that's mixed in with the truth. Probation has not embodied care first, harm last. Probation has failed us time and time again since the reopening of Los Padrinos. First, they've been found under compliance numerous times since July of 2023, bringing drugs leading to over 30 youth to overdose on probation watch, possession of weapons on facilities, and mental, physical, and emotional abuse towards the youth inside. Programs are inactive, so how are you supposed to stay productive? They say they don't have enough funding for staff, but there are more than 247 vacant paid positions still being budgeted. More security is still being invested into. Second, 8 probation officers were put on paid leave because they're having kids fight each other, which results in additional charges for youth, forcing youth 18 and over into adult court, creating an atmosphere of disconnect with the services and legal defense. Pushing them at MCJ will only amplify their criminal activity. Probation is setting youth up as a criminal and for failure. On top of that, how can probation claim this is truly rehabilitation when rehabilitation is defined as a set of interventions designed to optimize functioning and reduce disabilities in individuals with health conditions and interaction with their environment? Youth that I've connected with through the Heart of Youth Justice Reimagine Work Group and partnered with the Return on Home Service have expressed how LP hasn't benefited them going in or coming home, additionally adding on to their trauma. Once again, we urge you to use your subpoena power to get accurate data from probation that is public information to hold probation accountable to the lies that's mixing with the truth. Youth can't get well in the cell. If you don't have the right settings and emotions are in disarray, poor lifestyle leads to poor education, and poor education leads to poor judgment, leads to poor outcomes. And we have to acknowledge that youth have mental health issues, and we have to humanize them. Just like Jeff said, emotional wellness is important. Youth increase more credible messengers that will help, that can be an assistance with helping them creating a action plan for themselves. So
That's your time, Jacob. Thank you.
How you guys doing? I'm gonna go ahead and be the bad guy up here. First of all, you guys talk about being a third party unbiased and and not trusting the BSCC. Well, first of all, before even that you guys would sit here and allow Ms. Deputy Chief Epps to be disrespected the way she was with being interrupted. I think only one person actually stepped up and said something. This is the second meeting where that's happened, but she's been so disrespected. I just noticed that. I don't know how she felt about it, but I saw it. I felt disrespected for her. I just wanted to point that out. Also, who is the public we talking about? Is we talking about the regular people out there every day with their kids going to school? Or are we talking about, and I'm gonna be the bad guy, CBOs, who plan to profit and benefit off the destruction of probation? Keeping it real. Probation goes down, they get the money. That's where it comes from. Or are we talking about the regular victims out there who have their kids going to school traumatized? Do we ever talk to those people? Do we ever go to just a regular average school, regular average church people, just regular people who haven't got no point of view of a CBO or not part of probation? That's the public to me. That's who I would consider the public. The person that's just walking to the store, not nobody with a CBO title that benefits from the destruction of probation. And like I said, I'm gonna be the bad guy, and I'm just go up there and say that. It's just, I'm in one of those moods today. But once again, you guys go ahead with the motion. The BSCC, yeah, they full of law enforcement, but they have been holding everybody accountable. And the motion was put together by someone who put the lawsuit on the BSCC. So it's like, who do we trust?
Thank you.
Okay, I want to give a moment of silence for a couple seconds for the people that we lost inside the facility. So I also want to be thanking the people that volunteer. I appreciate that. And I'm here back again on April. I was here back in April in 2023, and I'm here in 2024. I'm surprised that I'm here back again for no change of the POC, you guys heard all we the people. I feel that way. I'm sorry that I can't explain everything, but I feel what they're going through. I believe what they're going through, and I have faith that POC have feelings for us because we are parents. We have a whole life ahead of us since our children are growing up, and I believe we should have a lot in our minds. And it's not just our safety, our education, our health. It's this disadvantage of all these children that have for the future. And I believe on these kids, and it's because it's been 18 years that this system has failed, not 115 days. It's been 18 years because I am one of those parents that was a teen mom. And of course, the father of the kids was a teen dad in and out of jail, and I seen it. There's no good education. There's no rehabilitation in this program. And I'm here because I'm a speaker and I know what it is. And I know I want change for everybody, not just LA County, the whole nation. Why not? And it's a big change, and here I am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are no further public speakers in the room. Ismael, do we have anyone signed up online? Chair Mundo, I'm going to ask your indulgence. I start my remarks at the beginning of every POC meeting that says, I'm going to read it, what it says in the script. We encourage real public participation in our meetings. Thank you to the Youth Justice Coalition and the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, the Achuchas, CDF. We got lots of community organizations who showed up today to give their participation, share their personal stories. That takes a lot of effort. And parents in the room and family members of people who have been incarcerated, I thank you warmly for your participation in today's meeting.
And Mr. Bell.
And Mr. Bell.
And Mr. Bell, I want to uplift that also. On my way here, I was having a discussion with my colleague, Commissioner Carrillo, just about the importance of many voices. And for me, someone who's been in the probation department, worked 30 years, sometimes I get procedural. I lose sight of the other elements. And commissioners here bring me back, kick me on the ankle, but push me on the arm. But I'm going to share with you that none of them have made such persuasive arguments as you did today. And this is what the PLC is for your voice, for the voice of probation, for the voice of the administration, and everybody in the system. So thank you. With that, I'm going to ask the commissioners if they have any further comments or questions. Commissioner Corrales.
Thank you, that's okay. Yes, first of all, I just want to give, thanks to all those that came up and made public comment and sharing your truths and also thank you for the encouragement and the support to the POC, because a lot of times we get told off too, just because we haven't gotten the answers. I think it's long overdue. And, and I also just want to say I was in Pelican Bay last month in Pelican Bay State Prison. And if I tell you how young the new population looks as compared to when I was there during the hunger strikes, they have this whole new influx of new, people now. And the faces were so young. And all I could think about was our youth here and what we're, striving for. And we want to see a change. We don't want to see the next generation going into Pelican Bay. We don't want to see the next generation entering into these adult facilities. And I'd also like to make a comment on Mr. Bell's statement. I 100% agree with his statement on some of the community-based organizations. But we're not the community-based organization oversight commission, but I do believe there should be one. There are community-based organizations abusing their own power. They are disallowing case managers from entering in, saying they are on a blackout. They are confiscating phones, saying they are on a communication blackout. Tell me, how is this any different than a carceral facility? There's a lot going on in community-based organizations getting a lot of funding too, that that are operating in, I feel, even worse way than probation because of the fact that they're dealing with people in reentry towards successful reentry, and people are free. They're not incarcerated anymore. So that I do think we do need a community-based organization commission oversight for that reason.
Mr. Mayor.
I just want to say again, Chief F, appreciate your professionalism under some stressful times. Like I say, the motion that's coming here, my biggest thing is about the fact that we have not, prior to the administration, we have now getting documentation from them. So I understand why that motion was drafted that way.
Okay, Wendy, would you facilitate a vote?
Yes, and for those of you who can't see this online, we currently have 6 commissioners present, which is a quorum. And that means that we'll take a vote and we need 4 yes votes for the motion to pass, a majority of the commissioners present. So I will call the roll. Commissioner Canales?
Yes.
Commissioner Terry? Commissioner Carrillo? Yes. Commissioner Garcia-Lays is absent. Commissioner Jackson absent. Commissioner Kokani?
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis absent. Commissioner Meredith? And Chair Mundo. So with 6-0 and 3 members being absent, I'm sorry. Yes, 6-0, 3 members being absent, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we will go on to item 6. We will discuss and take appropriate action, including passing a motion directing staff to work with, to work with the OIG to issue a subpoena on behalf of the PLC requesting the probation department requesting from the probation department attached to the agenda are items we have received from probation department since January 11th, 2024 PLC meeting for review and analysis by the PLC. We have not received responses to the following: Brian Diaz death investigation.
Commissioner Meredith stole my thunder a little bit, but I was actually going to start my presentation here with gratitude for Deputy Chief Epps. The rate and thoroughness with which the items have been received that we requested over the last month since the last meeting is unparalleled over the 3 years of the existence of the Probation Oversight Commission. Deputy Chief Epps actually responded to all of the items. There just were 2 items in which the response was not accepted by the commission, which are the BSCC item, which has already been dealt with, and the issue about the Brian Diaz death investigation. But I wanted to be clear that she did respond to the question, both in writing and then verbally at the last meeting in January regarding the department's position about not speaking about pending litigation. I don't want to put those words in your mouth, Deputy Chief Epps, but I think that's what you said. I'll let you clarify that in a second. But there's a long list of items that were received. They have been attached to the agenda for transparency purposes. So we have a list of items that have been received up to and including yesterday that met all of the other requests. And some of those were follow-up requests regarding former presentations. Some of them were long-standing requests from months ago that the POC had made. So thank you. And unless there's something that you wanted to add about the Brian Diaz death investigation questions, I think that we are not expecting a presentation on this item.
There are only 2 big questions that I can respond to. One, there was the question of who's conducting the investigation. The responding agency was the Los Angeles Police Department. My understanding is the investigation is closed. We do not have a liaison assigned to work with the Los Angeles Police Department because there is no investigation that's happening. The third question was, had we opened up an investigation? And again, I'll state what I stated at the last thing. We don't respond on personnel matters that are open. I can't confirm or deny that. The last thing I wanted to note, we did locate Brian Diaz's personal effects, and arrangements will be made to return those items to his mother.
Okay, commissioners, if you have a comment, question, Mr.
I
Mayor.
understand the nuances, and then this is the Los Angeles Police Department. If they close their investigation, if the Los Angeles Police Department has closed this investigation, I would encourage that the chief, if not, I can do it through Supervisor Barga's office, take another look at it, because my information that the suspect that provided that and contraband the facility is known and should have been followed up on. That's where my point was on this. So.
Okay, no further comment or questions? Okay, there is a motion attached, and we will not be moving forward on that, and we will be moving on to public comment.
Is there anyone who'd like to give public comment on item number 6 regarding the request for information? I don't see anyone in the room. Anybody online? No commenters online. Okay.
So the presenter for item 7 was unable to attend today, and so we are going to table that for another day and move on to agenda item number 8. So agenda number 8 is to discuss and take appropriate action on updates from the PLC Executive Director. Wendy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. A large reason that I put this item onto the agenda is in order for us to be able to share with all of the commissioners at one table together, and also with the public, about what the Probation Oversight Commission staff are working on. It's also an opportunity for us to continue to share some of the updated data that we receive and analyze and present to the public, so that you'll see those attached under my agenda item. That's actually probably the most important reason to add it to the agenda. Included today are recent OC spray deployment reports, as well as the population statistics. I wanted to share with you a few things that, and actually, I think I may also ask Chair Mundo if he wants to now go back to share some of the goals issues, because that was one of the things we didn't think we had time for. But the new leadership team had an opportunity, and by that I mean the POC leadership team, Commissioners Mundo, Canales, and Terry, to meet last week. Was it just last week? To meet last week to talk about the way that the meetings were going to be prepared and run, how we were going to encourage public participation even further, and most importantly, what the specific goals of the commission are going to be, or of the commission are going to be over the next year of their leadership. I'm going to talk about the first two, and then I'll turn it over quickly to Commissioner Mundo. One of the ideas that the commission leadership came up with is one that the staff have warmly embraced and actually already taken steps forward on, which is related to the idea of being able to help individual members of the public to get information about their needs and concerns about the department. What happened today with what Deputy Chief Epps just said, I'm not sure if you heard it, but I heard a collective sigh of relief over here on the table with regard to Brian Diaz's personal items. That is an obviously extreme example of what we're talking about, but the commission staff, in particular, my friend and colleague here, Belinda Mellado, is going to be available during our commission meetings to help people follow up with concerns and questions they have directly for the department about their individual cases. And so we will make sure to be able to have a method by which to follow up with those items. We encourage people to come up to talk to any of our staff members, but in particular, Belinda, who will be available to answer questions and have follow-up. Some of those may come up during public meetings, some of them may not. We may deal with them behind the scenes and help to get issues dealt with. So along those lines, we have talked about our communications and outreach and improving participation in our meetings. I will say I'm extremely proud of the participation in our meetings already. You'll see soon, we've created Ismael Chinchilla, our communications manager, has created a 90-day report that talks about how many people attend our meetings. And we have often around between 400 and 500 people who watch the meetings in various formats, attending in public or watching on YouTube, watching on WebEx. That's amazing, and also means that there's a lot of outreach potential for us to do. As I said earlier, one of our main targeted areas is families, and in particular parents of young people, but also families and people on adult probation. And there are a number of goals that the commissioners have expressed that relate to that. So we're excited to work with the new leadership team. And do you want to talk a little bit about the goals?
Sure. As Wendy indicated, we did meet last week, but I also reached out to commissioners that were not a part of the leadership team to get their input. And we set a broad range of goals and then a specific range. And so we hope to maintain the commission's focus on conducting thorough inspections, ensuring youth in the facilities are receiving needed programs and services, reducing the population of incarcerated youth, in particular by pushing reform of system-wide efforts to reduce the number of youth brought into the facilities in the first place. And that means that we hope to work with law enforcement agencies and inform them of the Reimagine effort that's going on in the county. We set a number of specific goals to measure our progress and success, and they include reaching a point where we are receiving a trusted flow of information from the department, having agendas prepared well in advance to ensure that requests for presentations are fair and reasonable and effective for the commission and the public, expanding our work to include adult and youth field services. We tend to spend a lot of time with the institutions, rightfully so, but there is other work that probation does that lends to the work we do. Pushing the department to improve its data collection, reporting, and analysis to focus on outcomes by role modeling how that can be done with the data the POC receives. Welcoming stronger collaboration with the Department of Youth Development and strengthening the link between probation and the goals of the Youth Justice Reimagined. And finally, continuing to grow the number of people who participate in our meetings. We get a lot of people that are from the public, and no offense to you, Mr. Bell, we love you attending here, but we would love to see more of your colleagues here and hear their voice because they do have a stake in the game, right? And what we're doing. So big goals, but we are feeling energetic and motivated to see all these changes. And with that, I will turn it over to Wendy.
Thank you. That's exciting. And I wanted to share that the two POC project directors also are continuing their work in their specific areas. So Donisha Smith is well underway with a couple of reports that we're very much looking forward to sharing with the public, one of which is focused on the demographics of the youth who are incarcerated, in particular in the halls. And I almost said halls in Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall, but also because of when the statistics were provided, also includes young people who are at Barry J. And then perhaps more importantly, a report that's related to what Chair Mundo just discussed, which is about the charges that young people are facing and some of the decisions that go into who is detained and who's not detained. What I think that you'll find from that report when we're able to publish it is that it's very complicated and that this is an issue that certainly involves probation. This is probation youth and probation custody. Probation has some areas of discretion, probation writes intake reports, but it is not only probation. It is in fact decisions that involve multiple systems players, in particular the courts, as has many times been brought up in these meetings, as well as the district attorney and the public defender's offices, and some of the opportunities for alternatives through the Department of Youth Development. So lots of interesting overlaps. We also have found a number of interesting overlaps with young people who have open child welfare cases. So we will be sharing that information and are very thankful to have Donisha and her team on staff to be able to move forward with those. And then I'm very sorry that Dr. Gongora wasn't able to be here today as she's ill, but she and a team of commissioners have been continuing the work that you all directed her to complete, which is around reviewing the existence and efficacy of the programs in the facilities with a particular focus on substance use disorder treatment programs and services. And so the team has been observing and reviewing and making sure programs are happening when they're on the schedule. And Sarah is going to have a detailed report about the observations of those programs. She's also been participating in a more countywide effort that's looking at the opportunities for expanding training in harm prevention, in particular Narcan accessibility and other issues with the department. The probation department has been very welcoming, I think is the right word, around that effort, and certainly demonstrated an interest in also enhancing those programs. So that I look forward to being able to share that report with you as well. So we are busy, and we certainly will be busy this week, I think now, with some opportunities for the commissioners to visit the facilities.
Okay, commissioners, any questions or comments? Wendy, would you check if we have public comment?
Anybody in the room want to make public comment or commenters online? Okay, nope.
Okay, with that, we'll go to agenda item number 9. Item 9 is for matters not posted on the agenda to discuss or to place on a future meeting agenda for action. If you'd like to provide a public comment on the next item for general public comment, please raise your hand now on WebEx. If you are in the room, you can approach the front of the room to get in line. Commissioners, do you have any announcements or items you would like placed for future agenda? Okay. Yes, we can go to public comment.
All right, so item number 10 is general public comment. So we'll do 2 minutes for public commenters. If you want to raise your hand on WebEx, use the little raise your hand function or dial *3 on the phone, and we will start with Audrina in the room.
Hi, my name's Adrina. I'm a parent. My son being incarcerated at Los Padrinos and witnessing probation destroy all my hard work and everything I built to create a great kid. I came across Youth Justice Reimagined, where I was just trying to figure out a way to help my child and to deal with this for him to be stronger and make it out, even though they're trying to break him in there. And I'm just going to read from this real quick. Right now in Los Angeles County, there are more than 500 youth locked in a cell away from their families. There are thousands more under probation supervision who are just one small mistake away from being separated from their families and thrown into one of those cells. As youth diversion expands and youth incarceration levels continue to dramatically decrease, the Juvenile Probation Department's budget keeps growing. If our best interest was in mind, the funding that goes to locking us up and keeping us under probation supervision would go into building strong support for us in schools, equitably resourcing peace builders and mentors, creating youth jobs and pathways to career, and comprehensive re-entry services for youth coming home from the halls and camps. More than 90% of youth incarcerated in LA County are Black and brown. That is a result of our communities being targeted for generations. All youth deserve multiple chances. Some get them, others do not. Some communities have development while others have containment and suppression. We are product of those communities that are over-policed and disinvested in. We are more likely to make police contact not based on our behavior and how our public resources are being spent. I also want to point out that if probation was in compliance with everything they're supposed to do, what is required of their policy, then people like me wouldn't be here to speak for these kids. But clearly they're failing my child, and I'm not going to stand here and allow a department that is meant to rehabilitate and treat lie to a community about what they do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bell is going to go next, and we see we have at least one hand online, so we'll go to the virtual commenters after Mr.
I'll be quick. I just wanted to end on a good note and just say good job to Mr. Mundo for his first full meeting as a chair.
That's right.
Okay, we have Preston with your hand up online. Feel free to unmute yourself, and we'll get your time started.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I would just like to end on, I think we all just have to do better. We just have to do better. We are in a unique position that we can really help these young kids. And it shouldn't be an argument. It shouldn't be a push and pull. It shouldn't be a fight. This should be unanimously like we working together on this agenda because they are being failed. While people are trying to point fingers and not hold other people accountable, I would just say you are in the way. You in the way of the progress that we are talking about that we need to attend to. It's only one way that these kids are being failed when the system isn't being checked and overlooked and oversighted enough to make sure that they are properly rehabilitating them the way that they need to. We need more people to come in to help advocate for these young kids. I hope that with this meeting that it's more results that's going to be coming up out of this from the next time that we talk about this event. But for the people that I heard today that were trying to push away the narrative that it's only the kids' fault, I would really ask yourself, why are you in the position that you're in if you're not here to help? Really, you are in the way and maybe you need to step down so someone else can step in and do the job that you're not doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Ismail, is that the end of? Okay, call-in user 13, and what did the phone number start with? Doesn't say. So if you're a call-in user wanting to make public comment, please dial *6 on your phone.
Yes, this is me. Thank you. This is Mel. I just wanted to call in and say I just kind of what Mr. Bell said. I really appreciate the efficiency of the meeting, the way it's being ran, and I really appreciate Mr. Mundo allowing people to speak and not cutting anyone off. And just ask that everybody remember that, you know, this is a team effort and we're all equally responsible and we're just all equally responsible. So just wanted to remind everybody it's a team effort. Let's collaborate and let's get this effectively done.
Hey, Commissioner Terry?
I wanted to say, Mr. Bell, I think you're right that it wasn't okay for Chief Epps to be disrespected. And I think you're right, we need to do better. And I think if we're trying to resolve problems and brainstorm solutions, then we have to hear each other. And so I just, you know, Chief Epps, I hope you hear me that it was not okay. And I do appreciate that you have been very professional in these meetings, very responsive in the meetings that you've been here a short time in this space and you followed up with requests. And I think we have to be sensitive too to how we speak to Black women in this space. No, I hear you. I hear you.
So we're going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting and any discussions outside, please. So thank you all for joining us and sharing your comments. As a quick reminder, be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel at LA County POC to receive reminders about our upcoming meetings. Visit our website at poc.lacounty.gov to subscribe to our email listing. Can I have a motion to adjourn today's meeting? Now let's.
Seconded.
And seconded by Kakani. It is now. Please unmute yourself and vote. Aye. It is now 1:02 on motion by Commissioner Canales, seconded by Commissioner Kakani. Today's meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Ahead of schedule.
Huh?
Ahead of schedule. Weren't we slated to go to 1:30?